This is the official audiobook of the book. To access the ebook version, the link will be in the first pinned comment just below. Click and access. The Awakening of Inner Vision. The morning mist rises from the ancient pond outside my window, and I watch as it transforms, not becoming something new, but revealing what was always there. This is how reality shifts, dear friend. Not through force or struggle, but through the gentle awakening of a vision that has been sleeping within you, waiting for this very moment to stir. You have come here because something inside you knows there is another way to see, another way to be. Perhaps you've grown weary of trying to bend life to your will through sheer mental effort, like attempting to straighten a river with your bare hands. Perhaps you've practiced visualization techniques that felt hollow, leaving you more frustrated than fulfilled. If so, you are exactly where you need to be. There exists a profound difference between seeing with the eyes and seeing with the heart. The eyes show us the surface of things, the apparent solidity, the seeming permanence, the illusion of separation. But the heart sees differently. It perceives the flowing nature of all existence, the malleability that lies beneath every moment, the interconnected dance that weaves through all experiences. The ancient Taoist sages discovered something remarkable about this deeper vision. They found that when we learn to visualize not from the striving mind but from the peaceful center of our being, reality responds instantly. Not because we are forcing change, but because we are aligning with the natural creative flow that is always moving through us. Imagine a mountain stream finding its way to the sea. It doesn't push against the rocks it encounters, it flows around them, over them, sometimes even through them, always maintaining its essential direction toward the vast ocean. This is how authentic visualization works. It moves like water, finding the natural path of least resistance while carrying within it the power to carve the deepest canyons. I have witnessed this transformation countless times, in the merchant who learned to visualize abundance not as accumulation but as circulation, and watched his business flourish beyond his dreams. In the mother who discovered how to see her difficult child through the eyes of compassion, and witnessed their relationship transform into unexpected joy. In the artist who stopped forcing inspiration and learned to receive it like morning dew, finding creativity flowing through her like an inexhaustible spring. The moment when reality becomes malleable arrives differently for each person. For some, it's as sudden as lightning illuminating the night sky, a flash of recognition that changes everything. For others, it emerges slowly, like dawn creeping across the landscape, gradually revealing what was always there. Both ways are perfect. Both ways are Tao. What matters is not the speed of the awakening, but the authenticity of the vision. When we visualize from our true nature rather than from our wanting mind, we tap into something far more powerful than personal will. We connect with the creative intelligence that grows the trees, moves the seasons, and beats our heart without our conscious effort. This is why Western visualization often falls short. It approaches the practice like a mental exercise, trying to manufacture specific outcomes through focused imagery. But this is like trying to make the sun rise by thinking about it intensely. The sun rises not because we will it, but because it follows its natural rhythm within the cosmic dance. True Taoist visualization works with this same principle. We learn to plant seeds of vision in the fertile silence of our inner landscape, then allow them to grow according to their own nature. We provide the soil of attention, the water of gentle intention, and the sunlight of trust. The flowering happens by itself. The promise I offer you is ancient yet eternally fresh, the promise of Wu Wei applied to inner vision. Wu Wei, often translated as non-action or effortless action, is the art of accomplishing through being rather than doing. When we master the Wu Wei of visualization, every aspect of our lives begins to transform organically, relationships deepen without force, work flows without strain, health improves without struggle, and our life purpose reveals itself like a path appearing in the forest. Consider this your invitation to a 30-day journey of discovery. Not 30 days of rigid discipline or complex techniques, but 30 days of returning to the natural way of seeing that is your birthright. Like a gardener tending the seedlings, we will cultivate this inner vision with patience, curiosity, and gentle persistence. Each day will bring new insights, like finding previously unnoticed wildflowers along a familiar path. Some days the changes will be subtle, a deeper sense of peace during a difficult conversation, a creative solution arising effortlessly, a moment of seeing beauty where you once saw only routine. Other days will bring more dramatic shifts, patterns that have held you for years suddenly dissolving, opportunities appearing as if by magic, relationships healing in ways that seemed impossible. Think of a river that has flowed in one direction for countless years, wearing a deep groove in the landscape. Then imagine a gentle earthquake that shifts the bedrock just slightly. The river doesn't fight this change, it simply begins following a new course, and over time, this small shift creates an entirely different landscape. This is the power of transforming how we visualize. Small changes in our inner seeing create ripples that alter the entire flow of our outer experience. Not through struggle or manipulation, but through alignment with the natural intelligence that orchestrates all change. As we begin this journey together, I invite you to release any expectations about how quickly things should shift or what form the changes should take. Instead, cultivate the curiosity of a child who has just discovered that different colored filters make the world appear in magical new hues. Each practice we explore is a new filter through which to experience reality, not changing what is there, but revealing aspects that were always present but previously invisible. Pause here and reflect. What would it feel like to visualize without any effort or strain, the way you breathe without thinking about it? Can you remember a time when an image or vision arose spontaneously and felt deeply meaningful? What would you most love to see transforming your life through this gentler approach? Take a moment now to simply sit quietly and notice your breath. Without trying to change or control anything, simply observe what images, if any, arise naturally in your awareness. Notice them like clouds passing through an open sky, present, real, but not requiring your effort to exist. Tomorrow, we will explore who you are in this moment and what has brought you to seek this ancient way of seeing. For now, simply rest in the possibility that everything you've been seeking to change or improve is already responsive to your deepest, most authentic vision. The seeds of transformation are already planted. We are simply learning to tend them with the wisdom of those who understood that the gentlest touch can move mountains. The lost navigator in the sea of mind. I see you there, friend, sitting perhaps in the quiet of early morning or late evening, drawn to these words by something deeper than mere curiosity. There's a weariness in your seeking, isn't there? A fatigue that settles in the shoulders like morning mist on a mountain slope. I recognize it because I once carried it myself, this burden of having tried so hard to change your life through the power of your mind, only to find yourself spinning in circles like a leaf caught in an eddy. You've been there, haven't you? Standing in front of your bathroom mirror, forcing yourself to visualize the life you desire, repeating affirmations until they taste like sawdust in your mouth. The self-help books promise that if you could just see it clearly enough, feel it intensely enough, believe it completely enough, your reality would shift like iron filings responding to a magnet. Yet here you are, months or perhaps years later, feeling more like a navigator who has lost both compass and stars. Let me paint the landscape of your struggle as I have witnessed it across countless souls who find their way to the ancient path. The modern world has taught you that visualization is like building a house. You must force each board into place, hammer each nail with determination, construct your dreams through the sheer power of mental will. But what if I told you that true visualization is more like tending a garden in moonlight? More like listening to the whisper of wind through bamboo than shouting your desires into a storm? The syndrome of excessive mental effort has become an epidemic in our achievement-obsessed culture. I watch as beautiful, sincere seekers turn their minds into construction sites, all noise and dust and heavy machinery, when what's needed is the gentle touch of morning dew on a flower petal. You've been taught to try harder when you should be learning to try softer. You've been told to concentrate more when what you need is to concentrate less, the way a cat concentrates on a bird, alert but relaxed, focused but fluid. Feel the truth of this in your body for a moment. When you force a visualization, your jaw tightens, doesn't it? Your breathing becomes shallow. Your forehead creases with the effort of controlling your inner world. But when have you ever seen nature strain against itself? When have you watched a river force itself downhill, or a tree struggle to grow toward sunlight? There's a natural current to all transformation, and you've been swimming upstream without realizing it. The conflict between desire and detachment haunts your practice like a koan that won't resolve. The Western visualization teachers tell you to want fiercely, to feel the burning desire for what you seek to manifest. But somewhere in your deeper knowing, you've heard the whisper of ancient wisdom suggesting that attachment is the root of suffering. So you find yourself caught between two rivers, one flowing toward passionate pursuit, the other toward peaceful letting go. You try to straddle both and end up drinking neither. This confusion is like trying to hold water in your cupped hands while running. The harder you grasp, the more quickly it slips through your fingers. Yet you've been conditioned to believe that spiritual achievement requires the same intense effort as climbing a corporate ladder or training for a marathon. The subtle art of allowing feels foreign in a culture that equates gentleness with weakness, receptivity with passivity. I sense too the overwhelm of information that weighs on your spirit like a backpack stuffed with unnecessary provisions. You've consumed countless books, attended workshops, downloaded apps, bookmarked videos, yet instead of feeling nourished, you feel saturated. It's as if you've planted a garden with 10,000 different seeds but never learned the patience of watching one plant grow from soil to fruit. Your spiritual practice has become a collection of techniques rather than a deepening relationship with the source from which all techniques arise. The hunger for immediate results pulses through your seeking like a fever. I understand this urgency. You've tasted enough glimpses of transformation to know it's possible, yet your daily life still feels painted in familiar shades of struggle. You want the meditation that will enlighten you today, the visualization that will manifest your desires by next Tuesday, the practice that will heal your heart before the weekend. But the Tao moves in seasons, not in minutes. The most profound changes occur not in the dramatic moment of breakthrough, but in the accumulated whisper of countless gentle shifts, like the way autumn arrives not with fanfare but with the quiet turning of leaves. This impatience has likely led you to abandon practices just before they bore fruit. You've tried visualization techniques for 2 weeks, maybe 3, before moving on to the next promising method. It's like pulling up seedlings to check if their roots are growing. The very act of checking prevents the growth you seek to measure. The culture of instant gratification has trained you to expect spiritual transformation to arrive like a pizza delivery, hot and ready in 30 minutes or less. There's something else I notice in those who find their way to these teachings, a profound loneliness that echoes through the chambers of your inner life. You've been walking a path that few around you understand or support. While others discuss the latest Netflix series or complain about traffic, you're contemplating the nature of consciousness and the power of intentional awareness. This isolation isn't born of superiority but of sensitivity. You feel more, perceive more, and therefore need practices that honor the depth of your experience. Your family might roll their eyes when you mention energy healing or visualization. Your colleagues might change the subject when you hint at the spiritual dimensions of success. Even among other seekers, you sometimes feel like you're speaking different languages, each person convinced that their particular method holds the master key. This isolation can make you doubt your own perceptions, wondering if perhaps you're making everything too complicated, too mystical, too otherworldly. What you're truly seeking, beneath all the techniques and teachings, is authenticity. You're tired of spiritual practices that feel like elaborate performances, tired of trying to convince yourself that you're feeling what you think you should be feeling. Your soul longs for a way of visualization that emerges from your own center rather than being imposed from the outside, that honors your unique way of perceiving and processing the world while connecting you to something larger than your individual will. You want to trust your own inner knowing again, to find practices that feel as natural as your own breathing. The superficial approaches have left you feeling like an actor playing a role in someone else's drama about enlightenment. But what if visualization could be as personal and natural as the way you dream at night, as organic as the images that arise when you're walking in nature with no agenda except to be present? Moment for reflection. Think back to a time when you experienced a spontaneous shift in your reality, perhaps a moment when the perfect words came to you in a difficult conversation, or when an unexpected opportunity appeared just when you needed it most. What was your state of mind in that moment? Were you forcing or allowing? Moment for reflection. Notice how you feel in your body right now as you consider releasing the need to make your visualization practice work through effort and control. What would it feel like to approach your inner life with the same gentle curiosity you might bring to watching clouds form and dissolve in the sky? Practice. For the next 3 days, instead of trying to visualize anything specific, simply notice the images that naturally arise in your mind throughout the day. Don't judge them or try to change them, just observe with friendly attention, the way you might watch fish swimming in a clear pond. Keep a small notebook with you and jot down what you notice about these spontaneous inner images. This isn't about analyzing or improving, it's about beginning to trust the wisdom that already flows through your inner landscape. I promise you this, dear traveler, the path that lies ahead requires not more effort, but more trust. Not more technique, but more tenderness toward your own unfolding. The Tao that wants to express itself through your visualization practice is already perfect, already present, already whispering its guidance through the quiet chambers of your heart. We need only learn to listen with the ears of water and see with the eyes of sky. The deep waters of visual Tao. Foundations. When I first discovered the ancient practice that would later reshape how I understood the relationship between inner vision and outer reality, I was sitting by a mountain lake at dawn. The water was so still it seemed like polished obsidian, reflecting not just the sky above, but something deeper, a quality of presence that existed in the space between seeing and being seen. That morning taught me something our modern world has forgotten. There is a profound difference between forcing images in our minds and allowing true vision to emerge from the depths of our being. The lake didn't strain to reflect the mountains. It simply was, and in that effortless being, it became a perfect mirror for all of creation. This is the essence of what I call visual Tao, the ancient art of seeing that transforms reality not through effort, but through alignment with the natural flow of existence itself. Wu Wei and the art of visualizing without effort. The concept of Wu Wei, often translated as non-action or effortless action, lies at the very heart of authentic visualization. But let me clarify something that causes much confusion in our achievement-oriented world. Wu Wei is not passivity, nor is it wishful thinking. It is the art of aligning ourselves so completely with the natural flow of life that our actions arise spontaneously, like a river finding its way to the sea. When I speak of Wu Wei in visualization, I'm inviting you to release the grip of forcing specific images or outcomes. Instead, imagine yourself as a skilled archer who has practiced so thoroughly that the moment of release becomes pure instinct. The arrow flies not because of struggle, but because of perfect alignment between intention, form, and the natural laws that govern movement. In my decades of teaching, I've witnessed countless individuals exhaust themselves trying to make visualization work. They clench their minds like fists, straining to hold detailed images of their desired outcomes, growing frustrated when these mental constructions feel brittle and temporary. This approach is like trying to capture moonlight in your hands. The harder you grasp, the more it slips away. True visual Tao begins when you learn to become like still water. Water doesn't visualize becoming a lake, it naturally settles into the shape that the landscape provides. It doesn't force itself uphill, it finds the path of least resistance while maintaining its essential nature. When you visualize from this state of Wu Wei, images arise not from your personal will, but from a deeper intelligence that knows exactly what wants to emerge. I remember working with Sarah, a marketing executive who came to me after years of failed attempts at manifestation techniques. She would spend hours each morning trying to visualize herself giving perfect presentations, but the harder she focused, the more anxious she became about public speaking. When I introduced her to Wu Wei visualization, everything changed. Instead of forcing images of success, I taught her to sit quietly and simply ask, "What wants to be seen?" Then she would wait, like a patient gardener, for whatever image naturally arose. Sometimes it was a gentle stream flowing over rocks. Sometimes it was a tree swaying in the wind. These images seemed unrelated to her career goals, yet as she learned to rest in them without judgment, something remarkable happened. Her presentations began flowing effortlessly, not because she had visualized success, but because she had learned to embody the natural ease that was always her birthright. This is the paradox of Wu Wei visualization. When we stop trying to control the process, it begins to work through us with an intelligence far greater than our personal minds could ever muster. Yin and Yang in inner vision. Within every authentic visualization lives the eternal dance of Yin and Yang, the receptive and the active, the formless and the formed, the emptiness that gives birth and the fullness that expresses. Understanding this interplay is crucial for anyone who wishes to move beyond superficial mental techniques into the realm of true inner alchemy. Yang visualization is the aspect most familiar to Western practitioners. It involves clear intention, focused imagery, and directed energy. When you visualize healing light flowing through your body or imagine yourself achieving a specific goal, you're working with yang energy. This force is like the sun, bright, focused, and actively creative. But yang without yin becomes rigid and eventually burns out. I've seen many dedicated practitioners exhaust themselves with constant positive thinking and forced visualizations, wondering why their efforts feel so draining. They've forgotten the essential feminine principle that gives birth to all manifestation. Yin visualization is the art of receptive awareness. It's the spacious emptiness that allows images to arise naturally, the fertile darkness from which all light emerges. When you practice Yin visualization, you become like a calm lake at twilight, reflecting whatever appears without preference or resistance. You might sit quietly and simply notice what images, sensations, or colors naturally arise in your awareness, welcoming them without trying to change or direct them. The magic happens when yin and yang unite in your practice. Picture a master calligrapher creating a brushstroke. The yang aspect is the clear intention and skilled movement of the brush. The yin aspect is the empty space on the paper that gives the stroke meaning, the receptive awareness that allows the perfect moment for action to arise, and the trust in the natural flow of ink across silk. In practical terms, this might look like beginning your visualization practice with several minutes of pure receptivity, simply sitting in open awareness, allowing whatever wants to emerge to appear naturally. This is your yin phase, the fertile emptiness that prepares the ground. Then, when you sense the right moment, you might gently introduce a soft intention or allow a specific image to take form. This is your yang phase, the creative expression that gives form to the formless. I often tell my students to think of this balance like breathing. The inhale is yin, receiving, gathering, opening. The exhale is yang, expressing, releasing, creating. Neither phase is more important than the other, and the pause between them is where transformation occurs. Jennifer, a yoga teacher from Portland, discovered this balance after struggling with visualization practices that felt forced and artificial. When she learned to begin each session with pure receptivity, what I call sitting in the emptiness, her visualizations became living experiences rather than mental constructions. She would sit quietly, allowing whatever images wanted to arise, and often found herself seeing colors, lights, or natural scenes that seemed to come from beyond her personal imagination. From this receptive foundation, when intentions naturally arose, they carried a power and authenticity that transformed not just her inner experience, but her relationships and work as well. Te, the natural power that flows through authentic vision. Te is perhaps the most mysterious and powerful concept in Taoist philosophy. Often translated as virtue or power, Te is actually the natural authority that arises when we live in complete alignment with the Tao. It's the effortless influence of a person who has returned to their original nature, the magnetic presence that draws others not through force or manipulation, but through authentic being. In the context of visual Tao, Te is the transformative power that flows through visualization when it arises from our deepest truth rather than our surface desires. This isn't the power to control reality, but the power to align so completely with the flow of existence that reality responds to us as naturally as a flower turns toward the sun. I've observed that most people approach visualization from their acquired self, the collection of wants, fears, and beliefs they've accumulated through social conditioning. They visualize from the level of I want this or I need that to be happy. While these intentions aren't wrong, they lack the transformative power of Te because they arise from a sense of separation and lack. Visualization infused with Te emerges from what I call our original face, the self that existed before we learned we were supposed to be different than we are. This original self doesn't visualize from need, but from fullness. It doesn't seek to acquire, but to express what is already whole and complete within. When you visualize from Te, several things become apparent. First, the images that arise feel both personal and universal, as if they're expressing something that belongs not just to you, but to life itself. Second, these visualizations carry a quality of inevitability, not because you're forcing outcomes, but because you're aligning with what wants to happen through you. Third, the boundary between inner vision and outer experience becomes fluid, as the same intelligence that creates your inner images orchestrates the circumstances of your external life. I remember David, a small business owner who had been struggling financially for years. His usual approach to visualization involved imagining specific amounts of money, particular clients, or detailed scenarios of success. These exercises left him feeling more anxious about his situation, as if he were trying to convince himself of something he didn't really believe. When I introduced him to visualizing from Tay, we began with a completely different approach. Instead of focusing on what he wanted to gain, I asked him to connect with what he genuinely had to offer the world. As he sat quietly, images began arising of hands crafting something beautiful, of light flowing through creative work, of people gathering in appreciation of genuine quality. These weren't visualizations about making money, they were expressions of his authentic nature as someone who creates value through careful attention and genuine care. Yet as he continued this practice, aligning his work with these deeper images of his essential self, his business began transforming in ways his goal-focused visualizations had never achieved. This is the power of Tay. When our inner vision expresses our authentic nature rather than our acquired desires, it carries a natural authority that reorganizes our experience from the inside out. The 5 elements in the mental landscape. The ancient Chinese understanding of Wu Xing, the 5 elements, provides a sophisticated map for working with different qualities of inner vision. These aren't physical elements, but archetypal energies that govern the cycles of creation, transformation, and renewal in all aspects of existence, including our inner landscape. Wood energy in visualization is the force of growth, expansion, and new beginnings. When you work with wood element imagery, you might visualize green shoots pushing through earth, bamboo reaching toward sky, or the explosive growth of spring after a long winter. Wood visualizations are particularly powerful when you're beginning new projects, healing from depression, or needing to assert healthy boundaries. The wood element teaches us that true growth requires both deep roots and the courage to reach toward light. Fire energy burns away what no longer serves while illuminating what wants to emerge. Fire visualizations involve light, warmth, celebration, and the joy of full expression. You might visualize sunlight streaming through your heart, a candle flame burning away old patterns, or the warm glow of connection with others. Work with fire when you need clarity, want to increase enthusiasm, or are ready to step into more visible expression of your gifts. Fire reminds us that transformation often requires the courage to let old forms burn away so new ones can be born. Earth energy provides stability, nourishment, and the patient power of gradual accumulation. Earth visualizations involve rich soil, steady mountains, golden harvests, and the reliable rhythms of seasonal change. Visualize roots extending deep into nourishing earth, yourself as a mountain that remains centered through all weather, or seeds of intention slowly growing in the dark soil of patience. Earth energy is essential when life feels chaotic, when you need to build something lasting, or when healing requires the slow medicine of time and consistent care. Metal energy is the power of distillation, refinement, and letting go. Like a master swordmaker who removes impurities to reveal the essential strength of steel, metal element visualization helps us release what obscures our true nature. You might visualize breathing in pure mountain air that cleanses your entire being, imagine yourself as a bell that rings with perfect clarity, or see excess thoughts and emotions falling away like autumn leaves. Metal energy supports us when we need to make difficult decisions, release old relationships or patterns, or clarify our values and priorities. Water energy is the most fundamental, representing the source from which all other elements arise and to which they return. Water visualizations involve flowing streams, deep oceans, gentle rain, and the patient power that carves canyons through solid rock. When you visualize yourself as water, you learn the art of persistence without force, of finding the way around obstacles while maintaining your essential nature. Water energy heals fear, teaches flexibility, and connects us to the wisdom that existed before our problems began. The genius of working with these 5 elements is that they naturally balance each other. If your visualizations have become too fiery, all enthusiasm and expansion, you can balance them with the grounding energy of earth or the flowing adaptability of water. If you're stuck in too much earth energy, overly cautious and slow to act, you can invite in the growth energy of wood or the clarity of metal. Maria, a therapist from New Mexico, discovered the power of elemental visualization during a period when she felt burned out from constantly giving to others. Her usual visualizations focused on protecting herself with white light, but these felt artificial and temporary. When I introduced her to the 5 elements, she began experimenting with different elemental images throughout her day. In the morning, she would connect with wood energy, visualizing herself as a strong tree with deep roots and flexible branches. During challenging client sessions, she would shift to water energy, seeing herself as a calm lake that could reflect others' emotions without being disturbed. At the end of her workday, she would invoke metal energy, visualizing the day's accumulated stress falling away like autumn leaves, leaving only what was essential. This elemental approach to visualization provided her with a natural, flexible system for maintaining balance that felt authentic to her deep love of nature. More importantly, it connected her personal practice to the larger cycles of renewal and transformation that govern all of life. Xiren, the spontaneous nature of change. Xiren, often translated as naturalness or spontaneity, points to something profound about how authentic transformation occurs. It's the principle that recognizes that the deepest changes in our lives don't come from force or strategy, but from a natural unfolding that happens when we align ourselves with the inherent intelligence of existence. In the context of visual Tao, Xiren explains why reality seems to shift instantly when our inner vision arises from our authentic nature rather than our surface desires. When visualization emerges from Xiren, it's not separate from the natural forces that orchestrate sunrise, guide migrating birds, or cause seeds to sprout at precisely the right moment. It's part of the same intelligence, expressing through our human awareness. This spontaneous quality is what distinguishes true visual Tao from mental technique. When you visualize from Xiren, you're not trying to impose your will upon reality. Instead, you're discovering what reality wants to become through you, and lending your consciousness to that natural unfolding. The key to accessing Xiren in visualization is learning to recognize the difference between images that arise spontaneously and those you create through effort. Spontaneous images have a quality of surprise. They appear fully formed, often containing elements you wouldn't have consciously chosen. They feel alive and autonomous, as if they exist independently of your personal will. Often, they're accompanied by a sense of recognition, as if you're remembering something you'd temporarily forgotten rather than creating something new. Effortful images, by contrast, require constant maintenance. You have to keep refreshing them in your mind, adjusting details that want to change, and pushing away distractions that naturally arise. They often feel flat or generic, like copying someone else's vision rather than discovering your own. I learned about Xiren from observing how children naturally visualize before they're taught that imagination and reality are separate. Watch a 4-year-old at play, and you'll see someone who moves seamlessly between inner vision and outer expression. They don't question whether their imaginary friend is real, they simply include that friend in their experience of the world. They don't struggle to visualize themselves as a superhero or a princess, they embody these archetypal energies with complete naturalness. This childlike spontaneity is what we're reclaiming through visual Tao practice, though informed now by adult understanding of how consciousness and reality interpenetrate. Thomas, a software engineer from Seattle, experienced Xiren dramatically during a period of career transition. He had been trying for months to visualize himself in various new job scenarios, but these mental exercises felt forced and uninspiring. During one of our sessions, instead of trying to create images, I asked him to simply sit quietly and notice what wanted to be seen. After several minutes of stillness, an image arose spontaneously. He saw himself as a bridge, with people walking across from one side to another. The image felt mysterious but compelling. He wasn't literally going to become a bridge, but something about this vision carried a quality of truth that his goal-focused visualizations had lacked. As he continued sitting with this image over the following weeks, not trying to interpret it but simply allowing it to be present in his awareness, opportunities began appearing that he never could have imagined. He was offered a position helping a company transition their team to new software systems, literally becoming a bridge between old and new ways of working. The synchronicity wasn't forced, it emerged from the same natural intelligence that had provided the original image. This is Xiren in action, when we stop trying to control our visualizations and instead become receptive to the images that want to arise naturally. We tap into the same creative force that coordinates all of life's apparent miracles. The distinction between imagination and inner vision. perhaps no distinction is more crucial for authentic visual Tao practice than learning to differentiate between ordinary imagination and true inner vision. While both involve images appearing in consciousness, they arise from completely different sources and carry vastly different transformative potential. Imagination, as commonly understood, is the personal mind's ability to recombine memories, concepts, and desires into new configurations. It's a wonderful human capacity, essential for creativity, planning, and entertainment. But imagination remains within the realm of the known. Even when we imagine fantastic scenarios, we're still working with elements drawn from our personal database of experiences and cultural conditioning. Inner vision, by contrast, emerges from what I call the unknown knowing, a level of awareness that exists prior to personal memory and conditioning. It's the same intelligence that knows how to grow your hair, regulate your heartbeat, and coordinate the trillions of cellular processes that maintain your body without any conscious direction from your personal mind. When inner vision arises, it often contains information, perspectives, or guidance that your personal mind couldn't have generated. The images may be simple or complex, realistic or symbolic, but they carry a quality of authority that comes from beyond individual consciousness. Several characteristics can help you distinguish inner vision from ordinary imagination. First, inner vision arises spontaneously, without effort or prompting. You might be sitting quietly when an image suddenly appears, complete and vivid, as if someone has turned on a screen in your mind. Second, these images often surprise you. They contain elements you wouldn't have consciously chosen or thought of. Third, they carry emotional resonance that feels deeper than personal preference. When true inner vision arises, you might feel moved to tears, filled with inexplicable joy, or struck by a profound sense of recognition. Inner vision also tends to be persistent in a way that imagination is not. A mental fantasy might entertain you briefly and then fade, but authentic inner vision often returns repeatedly, sometimes over months or years, as if carrying a message that hasn't been fully received. These recurring images often evolve slowly, revealing new layers of meaning as your understanding deepens. Most importantly, inner vision carries transformative power. When you align your life with authentic inner vision, reality responds. Not through magic or supernatural intervention, but because inner vision reveals the natural patterns and potentials that want to manifest through your unique consciousness. Rebecca, a mother of 3 from Austin, discovered this difference during a challenging period when she felt lost in the demands of parenting and had forgotten her own dreams and aspirations. She had been trying to use visualization to imagine herself pursuing various interests, painting, writing, travel, but these mental exercises felt like escapist fantasies that only made her more frustrated with her current circumstances. During a weekend retreat, as she sat in meditation beside a quiet stream, an image arose spontaneously. She saw herself as a lighthouse, standing steady on rocky shore while her light helped others navigate safely through stormy waters. The image was so vivid and carried such emotional power that she began crying, though she couldn't immediately explain why. This wasn't an image she would have consciously chosen. It seemed to have nothing to do with her artistic interests or travel dreams. Yet as she lived with this vision over the following months, it began reshaping how she understood her role as a mother and community member. She started a support group for other parents, began writing articles about mindful parenting, and found herself naturally becoming someone others turned to for guidance during difficult times. The lighthouse image had revealed not what she wanted to do, but who she authentically was, and when she aligned her life with this deeper identity, fulfillment arose naturally. As we conclude this exploration of the foundational principles of visual Tao, I invite you to pause and reflect. What images arise spontaneously when you sit quietly without agenda? Can you sense the difference between what you think you should visualize and what naturally wants to be seen? What would it feel like to trust that the same intelligence that orchestrates the natural world might have wisdom to offer through your inner vision? For your practice, spend 10 minutes each day this week simply sitting with open awareness, neither seeking specific images nor pushing away whatever arises. Notice the difference between effort and receptivity, between imagination and vision, between forcing and allowing. Like a patient gardener, you're learning to recognize what wants to grow naturally in the soil of your consciousness. The path ahead will teach you to cultivate this natural capacity into a reliable source of guidance and transformation. But for now, rest in the understanding that you don't need to create inner vision, you only need to learn to recognize and trust what is already arising from the deeper intelligence that lives at your core. In the next phase of our journey together, we'll explore how these foundational principles translate into the practical art of daily living, discovering how visual Tao can transform the most ordinary moments into opportunities for alignment, growth, and authentic expression. The Tao in motion principles in daily life. The morning mist clings to the valley as I walk along this ancient path, and I find myself thinking of you, dear friend, caught in the whirlwind of modern life. How often do we forget that the very breath we draw, the ground beneath our feet, the rhythm of our hearts, all carry the same wisdom that flows through rivers and seasons? Today, I want to share with you how the art of effortless visualization becomes as natural as breathing, weaving itself into every moment of your daily existence. There was a time, many seasons ago, when I watched a master calligrapher at work. His brush moved across rice paper with such fluidity that each stroke seemed to paint itself. When I asked him about his technique, he smiled and said, "I do not paint the characters, I breathe them into being." This is the essence of what we explore today, how visualization becomes not something we do, but something we are. Visualization is inner breathing. Feel the cool morning air entering your lungs as you read these words. Notice how breathing requires no effort, no forcing, no mental gymnastics. It simply is. This is our first principle. Visualization is inner breathing. In our hurried world, we have forgotten that visualization was never meant to be work. We strain and struggle, creating elaborate mental movies, exhausting ourselves with the effort of manifestation. But observe the wise bamboo swaying in the wind. It does not effort to bend, it simply responds to what is. Your inner vision can learn this same natural responsiveness. When you sit in a meeting that feels heavy with tension, instead of forcing yourself to visualize a perfect outcome, simply breathe. With each inhalation, imagine drawing in clarity like mountain air. With each exhalation, release the need to control the conversation's flow. You are not manipulating the situation, you are aligning yourself with the natural intelligence that already exists within it. I remember walking through a marketplace in my younger days, overwhelmed by the chaos of voices, smells, and colors. An old vendor noticed my distress and gestured for me to sit beside her. "Watch," she whispered, pointing to a cat sleeping peacefully amid the commotion. The cat does not fight the noise, it breathes through it. In that moment, I understood. We can breathe our way into any environment, any challenge, any relationship, not by changing what is, but by flowing with what is. Practice this now. As you move through your day, let visualization become as automatic as breathing. In the grocery store, breathe in gratitude for the abundance surrounding you. Breathe out any anxiety about choices or costs. In traffic, breathe in patience like the steady rhythm of waves. Breathe out frustration like steam rising from warm earth after rain. You are not trying to change your external circumstances, you are transforming your inner landscape, which naturally shifts how you experience everything around you. Pause here and take 3 conscious breaths. With the first, imagine drawing in peace. With the second, visualize taking in clarity. With the third, breathe in your own inner strength. Notice how this simple act begins to shift something subtle but profound within you. The water principle in relationships. The sound of water flowing over smooth stones carries a teaching that our ancestors understood intuitively. Water never fights the rock, it embraces it, flows around it, and over time, lovingly shapes it. This is how we can approach every human interaction through the lens of visualization. How different our relationships would be if we stopped trying to change others and instead learned to flow like water around their sharp edges. This does not mean becoming passive or accepting harmful behavior. Water is soft, yes, but it is also persistent. It finds its way through the smallest cracks and can carve canyons through mountains given enough time. When someone speaks to you with anger, resist the impulse to immediately visualize them calm or different. Instead, see yourself as a clear mountain stream encountering a fallen log. You do not curse the log or try to move it by force. You simply flow around it, maintaining your essential nature, your clarity, your coolness, your purpose of reaching the sea. I once witnessed a remarkable conversation between two business partners on the verge of ending their partnership. One had learned the water principle. Instead of defending his position or attacking his partner's character, he visualized himself as a gentle stream, allowing his partner's anger to flow through the conversation without resistance. "I hear your frustration," he said, his voice carrying the steady quality of flowing water. "Tell me more about what you need." By the end of their talk, what had begun as a confrontation had become a collaboration. This is the power of water visualization in relationships. You maintain your own course, your values, your boundaries, your authentic self, while allowing others to express their full nature without triggering your defensive patterns. Like water, you become adaptable without losing your essence. Close your eyes for a moment and bring to mind someone with whom you have a challenging relationship. Instead of visualizing them differently, see yourself as clear, flowing water. Feel your natural ability to maintain your peaceful essence regardless of what obstacles appear in your path. Notice how this inner shift immediately changes the energy you would bring to your next interaction with this person. Try this during your next difficult conversation. Before speaking, take a breath and visualize clear water flowing through your words. Let your responses emerge from this flowing place rather than from the rocky shore of defensiveness. You will be amazed how others respond when they encounter water instead of stone. Mountain and valley in work. The mountain stands firm against storms, rooted deep in the earth's embrace. The valley receives all waters, nourishing every seed. In the landscape of our work lives, we need both the mountain's stability and the valley's receptivity. Through visualization, we can embody whichever quality serves the moment best. Our modern work environment often demands that we be constantly on, always assertive, always producing, always climbing. This creates an exhaustion that no amount of caffeine or motivation can cure. The Tao teaches us a different way, the rhythmic dance between mountain energy and valley energy. Mountain energy is focused, determined, unshakable. When you need to present to executives, negotiate a contract, or stand firm on your principles, visualize yourself as a mountain. Feel your feet deeply rooted, your spine straight as a peak reaching toward heaven. From this place, your words carry weight because they emerge from stability, not agitation. But mountains alone create deserts. Valley energy is equally essential, receptive, adaptive, nurturing. In brainstorming sessions, when listening to feedback, or when collaborating on creative projects, visualize yourself as a fertile valley. Feel your mind spacious and welcoming, able to receive ideas like spring rain without judgment. From this openness, innovation flows naturally. I once consulted with a brilliant engineer who was frustrated by his inability to advance in his career. He was all mountain, technically excellent but unable to collaborate effectively. "How do you work with water?" I asked him. "You don't fight it," he replied instinctively. "You create channels for it to flow." Together, we developed his valley visualization practice. Within months, his colleagues began seeking him out for projects, drawn to his new capacity to receive their ideas and build upon them. The key is knowing when to be the mountain and when to be the valley. Before each meeting, take a moment to sense what the situation calls for. Does this moment need your strength and stability? Breathe into your mountain nature. Does it need your receptivity and flow? Settle into your valley essence. Trust that you have both within you. You are learning to access whichever serves the highest good of the moment. Think of a work challenge you're currently facing. Is this situation calling for mountain energy or valley energy? Spend a moment visualizing yourself embodying whichever quality is needed. Feel how this inner stance immediately shifts your approach to the challenge. The flexible bamboo in adversity. Listen to bamboo singing in strong wind. It bends so far it nearly touches earth, yet it never breaks. Its secret? Deep roots and hollow interior. This is our model for navigating life's inevitable storms through the power of visualization. Adversity reveals our true nature. When difficulties arise, our conditioned response is often to either become rigid with resistance or to collapse entirely. Bamboo teaches us a third way, flexible strength rooted in emptiness. In Taoist terms, this emptiness is not lack, it is spaciousness, the inner vastness that allows us to bend without breaking our essential integrity. When faced with criticism, job loss, health challenges, or relationship difficulties, most people either fight the circumstances or become overwhelmed by them. The bamboo approach invites us to visualize ourselves bending with the storm while maintaining our core stability. We neither resist what cannot be changed nor lose ourselves in the difficulty. I knew a woman whose small business was devastated by economic changes beyond her control. Instead of fighting the new reality or surrendering to despair, she practiced bamboo visualization daily. Each morning, she would sit quietly and imagine herself as bamboo in wind, bending deeply but never breaking, her roots growing stronger with each challenge. This practice gave her the flexibility to pivot her business model 3 times until she found what worked in the new environment. She often said that her business failure became her spiritual success because it taught her resilience she never knew she possessed. The hollow nature of bamboo is crucial to understand. When we visualize ourselves as bamboo, we are not imagining ourselves as weak or empty in the negative sense. We are connecting with the spacious awareness that lies at our core, the part of us that can witness even our own difficulties without being destroyed by them. This inner space allows the storm to pass through us rather than against us. Bring to mind a current challenge or adversity in your life. Take a deep breath and visualize yourself as bamboo facing strong wind. Feel your roots growing deeper with each challenge, your flexibility increasing. Notice that you can bend extremely far without losing your essential nature. What feels different about this challenge when approached with bamboo consciousness? Practice this visualization whenever you feel life's pressures mounting. See yourself bending gracefully with whatever force is present, neither breaking nor uprooting, but dancing with the energy that seeks to move through your experience. Remember, the storm always passes, but the bamboo that has learned to dance with difficulty emerges stronger and more beautiful than before. Sunlight through clouds and health. Above the darkest storm clouds, the sun shines with unchanging radiance. This eternal truth becomes a powerful ally in our approach to physical and emotional well-being. Through visualization, we learn to identify not with the passing clouds of symptoms, but with the sun of our essential vitality that always shines within. Our relationship with health in modern society is often one of fear and fighting. We battle symptoms, wage war on diseases, struggle against aging. The Taoist approach invites us to remember that beneath all temporary conditions lies an unshakable source of life energy. We are not denying the reality of physical challenges, we are connecting with something deeper than any single condition. When my own body faced its seasons of difficulty, I learned to visualize the sun of my essential vitality shining steadily above whatever clouds of discomfort or concern might be passing through. This did not cure my symptoms immediately, but it fundamentally changed my relationship to them. Instead of seeing illness as an enemy, I began to perceive it as weather, sometimes stormy, sometimes clear, but never permanent. I want to be very clear here, visualization is not a substitute for proper medical care. What I am sharing is a complementary practice that can support your overall well-being and help you maintain emotional equilibrium during health challenges. The visualization practice is simple yet profound. Each morning, before rising, spend a few moments connecting with the sun that shines within your chest. Feel its warm, golden light radiating through every cell of your body. This light is not fighting darkness, it is simply shining, as is its nature. When areas of discomfort or concern arise, instead of battling them, visualize the clouds of symptoms floating in the vast sky of your essential wellness. A friend of mine used this practice during her recovery from surgery. Each day, she would spend time visualizing golden sunlight flowing through her body, not to force healing, but to remember her body's natural inclination toward wholeness. She found that this practice reduced her anxiety about recovery and seemed to support her body's natural healing processes. Her doctors were impressed by her positive attitude and steady progress. Place one hand on your heart and one on your belly. Close your eyes and visualize warm, golden sunlight radiating from your heart center through your entire body. Feel this light not as something you create, but as something you uncover, your natural radiance that has always been present. Spend a few breaths simply basking in this inner sun. This practice works equally well for emotional health. When anxiety, depression, or overwhelm arise like storm clouds in the sky of consciousness, we can learn to rest in the unchanging awareness that observes even our darkest moods. We are not the weather of our emotions, we are the vast sky in which all weather occurs. The inner garden of abundance. In every seed lies the memory of countless harvests. In every moment lies the potential for abundance beyond our current imagination. Through the metaphor of the garden, we learn to cultivate prosperity with the patient wisdom of those who understand natural cycles. Our culture's approach to abundance often resembles strip mining more than gardening. We want immediate results, instant manifestation, overnight success. The garden teaches us that true abundance follows natural laws: patient preparation of soil, mindful planting, consistent tending, and trust in timing beyond our control. When I visualize abundance, I do not see piles of money or material possessions falling from the sky. I see a garden in full bloom, vegetables heavy on the vine, flowers attracting bees, fruit trees bending under the weight of their generosity. This abundance emerged from simple, repeated acts: preparing soil, planting seeds, watering faithfully, trusting the process. In your own life, what seeds of abundance are you planting? Perhaps it is the seed of learning a new skill, expressed through daily practice. Maybe it is the seed of deeper relationships, watered by authentic conversations. It might be the seed of creative expression, nurtured by small daily acts of making something beautiful. The garden visualization works because it aligns our efforts with natural law rather than fighting against it. We plant our intentions like seeds, water them with consistent action, and trust that abundance will emerge in its own season. This removes the desperate energy that often repels the very prosperity we seek. Take a moment to visualize your life as a garden. What seeds have you already planted that are beginning to sprout? What areas need more tending? What new seeds feel ready to be planted? Feel yourself as both gardener and garden, the one who tends and the soil that receives. Notice how this perspective immediately shifts your relationship to your goals and dreams. A successful entrepreneur once shared with me that her breakthrough came when she stopped trying to force business growth and began thinking like a gardener. She identified the seeds she wanted to plant: skills, relationships, reputation, committed to watering them daily, consistent action, learning, service, and trusted the harvest to emerge when ready. Her business flourished because it grew from natural principles rather than forced manipulation. The inexhaustible spring of creativity. Deep beneath the surface of even the driest desert, springs of fresh water wait to nourish whatever seeks to grow. Your creativity is such a spring, inexhaustible, ever-flowing, requiring only that you remember how to dig deep enough to reach it. Creativity is not something we have or don't have, it is something we allow or block. The spring metaphor reminds us that creative energy is always flowing. Our task is simply to clear away whatever debris might be obstructing our access to it. When we approach creativity through Taoist visualization, we stop trying to generate inspiration and instead learn to receive it from the inexhaustible source that lies within. I have watched artists, writers, entrepreneurs, and problem solvers of every kind rediscover their natural creativity through this simple shift in perspective. Instead of staring at blank pages or empty canvases wondering where ideas will come from, they learn to visualize themselves sitting beside an eternal spring. They bring their challenges, questions, and projects to this inner water source and allow solutions to bubble up naturally. The visualization is beautifully simple. Whenever you face a creative challenge, take a few deep breaths and imagine yourself sitting beside a crystal-clear spring emerging from deep in the earth. Feel the cool, fresh water flowing steadily upward. This water is your natural creativity, not something you manufacture through effort, but something you receive by becoming still and receptive. Close your eyes and bring to mind a creative project or problem you're currently working on. Now visualize yourself sitting peacefully beside a clear spring. Ask your questions silently to the water and then simply listen. Don't force answers to come, just remain open and curious. Often, the first flash of insight that arises contains exactly what you need. An architect I know was stuck on the design for an eco-friendly community center. After weeks of forced brainstorming, she tried the spring visualization. Sitting quietly by her inner water source, she asked the spring to show her the building's natural form. An image arose of water flowing around stones, creating pools and eddies. This became the inspiration for a design that allowed community activities to flow naturally around quiet spaces for reflection. The building won several awards and became a model for sustainable community architecture. Remember, the spring never runs dry. When you feel creatively blocked, you are not actually lacking inspiration, you are simply trying too hard to control its flow. Return to the spring visualization whenever you need to remember that creativity is your birthright, as natural and abundant as water emerging from the earth's depths. As we near the end of this exploration of daily principles, take a moment to reflect, which of these approaches, visualization as breathing, water and relationships, mountain and valley in work, bamboo in adversity, sunlight in health, garden for abundance, or spring for creativity, most resonated with your current life situation? Trust your intuition as you choose where to begin integrating these practices. Now, as the afternoon light slants across this mountain path where we have walked together, I offer you this simple practice. Choose one daily activity, perhaps your morning shower, your commute, or your evening meal, and for the next week, bring one of these visualizations into that routine. Not as work to be done, but as a way of remembering your natural connection to the flowing wisdom that already lives within you. The Tao is not something distant that you must achieve. It is the very ground of your being, expressing itself through every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of awareness. These visualizations simply help you remember what you have always known. You are not separate from the intelligence that moves rivers to the sea and seasons in their endless dance. You are that intelligence, learning to recognize itself in the beautiful complexity of human experience. Feel the earth solid beneath your feet, the sky vast above your head, and know that you carry within you all the wisdom you need for the journey ahead. Dawn rituals, daily practices. The morning light filters through my window as I prepare to share with you the gentle practices that have transformed countless lives over millennia. These are not rigid exercises demanding perfection, but flowing rituals as natural as breathing, as essential as the dew that kisses each blade of grass at dawn. I have watched the sun rise 10,000 times, and each morning brings the same truth. Transformation happens not through force, but through faithful return to simple, sacred acts. The practices I offer you now are like streams that carve canyons, not through violence, but through persistent, gentle flow. The morning practice of the three treasures. Before your feet touch the floor, before the world claims your attention with its urgent demands, there exists a sacred pause. This is when the veil between inner and outer reality is thinnest, when your visualization carries the power to shape the entire day ahead. As you lie in the soft space between sleep and waking, place your hands gently on your lower abdomen. Feel the warmth of your palms connecting with what we call the dantian, the field where essence gathers like morning mist in a valley. This is where your jing, your vital essence, pools like a hidden spring. Breathe naturally and allow an image to arise. Deep beneath a mountain, a crystal-clear pool reflects starlight even in daylight. This pool never runs dry, never grows murky. It is your essential nature, untouched by yesterday's worries or tomorrow's uncertainties. As you breathe in, visualize drawing from this infinite well. As you exhale, feel this pure essence circulating through your body like gentle streams feeding a meadow. Now shift your attention to your heart center. Here dwells your chi, the vital energy that animates every cell, every thought, every emotion. Place one hand on your heart and feel its steady rhythm, a drum that has beaten faithfully since before your first breath. Visualize a warm golden sun rising within your chest, its light soft and healing rather than harsh and demanding. This inner sun doesn't burn, it nurtures. See its rays extending gently through your entire being, illuminating your organs, your bones, your blood. Feel how this light carries intelligence, how it knows exactly where healing is needed, where stagnation must be dissolved, where strength must be cultivated. Finally, let your awareness rest at the crown of your head, where your shin, your spiritual consciousness, connects you to the vast mystery of existence. Here, no effort is needed, only recognition. You are not creating something new, you are remembering what has always been true. Visualize the night sky at the moment just before dawn, when the first star fades and infinite possibility shimmers in the growing light. You are this threshold moment, this bridge between the seen and unseen worlds. Feel your consciousness as vast as this sky, yet intimate as your own heartbeat. Hold all 3 visualizations gently, like a mother holding 3 sleeping children. Let them merge and dance together, the deep spring of essence, the golden sun of energy, the infinite sky of spirit. This is not work, this is homecoming. This entire practice takes perhaps 5 minutes, yet it sets the foundation for a day lived in alignment with your deepest nature. I have seen stressed executives find unshakable calm through this simple morning ritual. I have watched anxious mothers discover reservoirs of patience they never knew existed. The secret lies not in the technique, but in the quality of gentle attention you bring to it. Reflection: what would change in your life if you began each day by remembering your own infinite nature? How might your interactions shift if you started from this place of inner abundance rather than inner lack? Practice: tomorrow morning, before checking your phone or rushing into activity, spend 5 minutes with the 3 treasures visualization. Notice not what you achieve, but how you feel as you move through your morning routine. The path of water during meals. In our hurried world, we often eat while distracted, treating food as fuel to be quickly consumed rather than as a gift to be received with gratitude. Yet every meal offers a profound opportunity for inner cultivation, a chance to practice the Tao of nourishment that feeds not just the body, but the soul. Before you take your first bite, pause. Look upon your food with the eyes of wonder, as if seeing nourishment for the first time. A simple grain of rice carries within it the power of sun and rain, the patience of the farmer, the wisdom of seasons. A humble carrot holds the earth's generosity, the darkness from which all light emerges. As you prepare to eat, visualize your entire digestive system as a gentle river system. Your mouth is the mountain spring where the journey begins. Your stomach is a peaceful lake where transformation occurs through stillness rather than churning. Your intestines are meandering streams that know exactly how to carry nutrients to every cell that needs them. Now, as you take your first bite, chew slowly and with full presence. Visualize the food dissolving not just physically, but energetically, releasing not only vitamins and minerals, but the life force that sustained this plant or sustained the animal that gave its life for your nourishment. Feel profound gratitude for this sacrifice, this gift freely given. As you swallow, follow the food's journey in your mind's eye. See it moving like a gentle current through your inner landscape. Visualize your body's wisdom automatically extracting what serves your highest good and releasing what no longer serves you. Trust this ancient intelligence that requires no conscious direction from you. With each bite, ask yourself, how can I receive this gift more fully? How can I honor the life that sustains my life? Feel your entire body as a temple where the sacred act of transformation occurs, where the gifts of earth and sky become the substance of your own being. Between bites, rest your utensils and breathe. Let your inner river system flow peacefully, without the turbulence that comes from eating too quickly or while stressed. Notice how this mindful approach naturally regulates your appetite, helps you recognize genuine hunger from emotional craving, and transforms even simple meals into profound spiritual practice. When you eat with others, visualize streams of gratitude and blessing flowing between all present. See the shared meal as a sacred circle where individual rivers of nourishment merge into a lake of community. Let your own peaceful eating rhythm invite others into deeper presence, without words or effort, simply through the power of your embodied tranquility. I have observed that those who practice this visualization naturally begin making wiser food choices. Not from harsh discipline, but from an inner compass that increasingly points toward what truly nourishes. The body's wisdom awakens when we listen with this quality of respectful attention. Reflection: how might your relationship with food change if you saw every meal as an opportunity for spiritual practice? What would shift in your eating habits if you truly honored the life force in each bite? Practice: choose one meal today to eat in complete silence and presence, practicing the river visualization. Notice how this affects not just your digestion, but your entire afternoon's energy and mood. The mirror practice in relationships. Of all the places where our inner visualization meets outer reality, relationships offer the richest laboratory for transformation. Every interaction becomes a mirror, reflecting back to us the very patterns we carry within. Rather than seeing conflicts as problems to solve, we can learn to see them as invitations to deeper self-knowledge. When you find yourself in tension with another person, whether spouse, colleague, child, or stranger, pause before reacting. Take one conscious breath and visualize your heart space as a still mountain lake at dawn. This lake is so clear and peaceful that it perfectly reflects whatever appears before it without being disturbed by what it reflects. Now, instead of focusing on what the other person is doing wrong, ask yourself, what in me is being reflected in this interaction? Perhaps their anger is showing you your own unacknowledged frustration. Perhaps their need for control mirrors your own fear of uncertainty. Perhaps their withdrawal reflects your own tendency to shut down when overwhelmed. Visualize the tension between you not as opposing forces in battle, but as two rivers flowing toward each other, creating turbulence at the point where they meet. This turbulence is not wrong, it's natural. But beneath the surface confusion, both rivers share the same essential nature, the desire to flow freely, to be understood, to find their way to the sea. As you breathe into this visualization, feel your own defensive walls softening like ice melting in spring warmth. You don't need to drop your boundaries or agree with everything the other person says. But you can release the rigid positions that keep both of you stuck in patterns that serve no one. Now visualize a bridge of light extending from your heart to theirs. This bridge doesn't require them to change or even to see it. It simply carries your commitment to remain open, to seek understanding rather than victory, to respond from your deepest wisdom rather than your most wounded places. Sometimes, as you hold this visualization, you'll notice the other person spontaneously softening as well. Not because you've manipulated them, but because your genuine shift in inner stance creates space for new possibilities to emerge. Like tuning forks that naturally harmonize when one begins vibrating at a clear frequency, human hearts tend to entrain to authentic presence. With practice, this mirror visualization becomes second nature. You begin approaching difficult conversations with curiosity rather than defensiveness. You start seeing your most challenging relationships as your greatest teachers, showing you exactly where you still need to grow in patience, compassion, and understanding. I remember a woman who used this practice with her teenage son. For months, their interactions had been nothing but conflict and slammed doors. But as she began seeing his rebellion as a mirror of her own unexpressed need for freedom, everything shifted. She stopped trying to control him and started getting curious about what he was trying to tell her. Within weeks, he began coming to her with his real struggles, sensing that she had become a safe harbor rather than another source of judgment. Reflection: who in your life triggers the strongest emotional reactions in you? What might they be reflecting back to you about your own inner landscape? How might these difficult relationships be serving your spiritual growth? Practice. The next time you feel defensive or angry with someone, pause and try the mountain lake visualization. Ask yourself what this person might be mirroring back to you, and visualize the bridge of light extending between your hearts. The evening garden before sleep. As darkness gathers and the day's activities wind toward rest, we enter nature's most profound teaching about letting go. Every evening, the earth releases the day just as trees release their leaves in autumn, not with regret, but with trust that this letting go creates space for new growth. Your bedtime visualization practice begins as you settle into bed, but before you close your eyes for sleep. Create a moment of sacred transition between the active day and restorative night by visualizing your inner landscape as a twilight garden where you tend the experiences you've gathered like seeds. Place your hands on your heart and feel it still carrying the emotional residue of the day, the frustrations, the joys, the unfinished conversations, the moments of beauty that made you pause. All of these are seeds that can either sprout into tomorrow's wisdom or become weeds of rumination that disturb your sleep. Begin by walking through your inner garden in the soft light of dusk. For each significant experience of the day, pause and ask, what seed does this carry for my growth? The difficult conversation with your partner might contain the seed of deeper honesty. The moment of frustration at work might hold the seed of needed boundaries. The instant when you noticed sunlight on water might carry the seed of greater presence. Now, with gentle hands, plant each of these seeds in the rich soil of your unconscious mind. You don't need to force understanding or solve every problem before sleep. Simply place each experience lovingly into the earth of your being, trusting that your deeper wisdom will work with these seeds while you rest. For the experiences that felt nourishing and life-giving, see yourself planting them in the sunny areas of your garden, where they can grow freely and bloom into tomorrow's joy. For the more challenging experiences, plant them in the composted areas where difficulty transforms into wisdom, where what seems like endings become beginnings. As you place the final seed, step back and survey your inner garden with deep satisfaction. You have been a good gardener today. You have received whatever life offered with presence and care. Now comes the season of rest, when growth happens in the darkness, beyond your conscious effort. Visualize a gentle rain beginning to fall on your garden, the rain of sleep that will nourish every seed you've planted. Feel your entire being softening like soil receiving this blessing. Your job as gardener is complete. Now you can trust the natural processes that work while you rest. Let your awareness settle deeper, like water soaking into earth. Feel gratitude for your body that has carried you faithfully through another day, for your heart that has opened to both joy and sorrow, for your mind that has learned and grown. All of this is compost for tomorrow's flowering. Some nights, you may find particular seeds difficult to release, worries that want to keep spinning, regrets that resist composting, excitement that doesn't want to quiet. When this happens, simply return to the image of gentle rain. Even the most resistant soil eventually receives water when it falls patiently, persistently, without force. As sleep begins to take you, hold the image of your garden resting in perfect trust under the vast night sky. The stars keep their eternal vigil while everything grows in the darkness. Tomorrow, you will wake to discover what has sprouted from today's faithful planting. Reflection: what would change about your sleep quality if you released each day's experiences with this kind of trust and gratitude? How might your dreams shift if you approached them as messages from your inner gardener? Practice. Tonight, try the garden visualization before sleep. Notice whether you sleep more peacefully when you've consciously planted the day's experiences rather than carrying them as unresolved tension. The mountain's breath in moments of stress. In the midst of overwhelming pressure, when deadlines loom and tensions rise, when your nervous system feels like a guitar string wound too tight, there exists a practice so simple and powerful that 30 seconds can shift your entire state. This is the emergency wisdom of the mountains, ancient, unshakable, breathing at the rhythm of geological time. The moment you notice stress building, perhaps your shoulders tensing, your breath becoming shallow, your thoughts racing like frightened rabbits, stop whatever you're doing. Even if you're in a meeting, even if others are watching, even if it feels impossible to pause. Place your feet flat on the floor and your hands somewhere comfortable, on your thighs, at your sides, or folded in your lap. Close your eyes if you can, or simply soften your gaze downward. Now, instead of trying to control your rapid breathing or force yourself to calm down, visualize yourself as a great mountain. Not a mountain you climb or conquer, but a mountain you become from the inside out. Feel your sitting bones connecting to the earth like roots extending deep into bedrock. Your spine becomes the mountain's steady ridge, your shoulders the gentle slopes where eagles nest without fear of falling. Your head is the peaceful summit that touches the sky but remains grounded in unshakable foundation. Now breathe as a mountain breathes, not with the quick, shallow rhythm of human anxiety, but with the vast, slow rhythm of geological time. As you inhale, imagine drawing breath through your roots from the Earth's core, where magma flows in patterns older than worry, deeper than fear. Let this breath rise slowly through your mountainous body, carrying with it the stability of stone, the patience of eons. As you exhale, release your breath like wind moving through high valleys, steady, continuous, unhurried. Feel how the mountain is never bothered by weather passing over its surface. Storms come and go, seasons change, but the mountain remains centered in its own nature, neither resisting the weather nor being changed by it. Continue breathing at this mountain rhythm for just a few breaths, perhaps 3 deep inhalations and 3 slow releases. Feel how your nervous system begins to entrain to this ancient cadence, how your heartbeat slows to match the pulse of deeper time, how your thoughts settle like snow coming to rest on high peaks. From this mountain consciousness, notice how the stressful situation looks different. The urgent deadline is still there, but it's weather passing over the mountain rather than a threat to your essential being. The difficult person is still difficult, but they're like wind that cannot move your fundamental stability. The overwhelming task list remains, but you approach it from the mountain's perspective of patient endurance rather than frantic scrambling. I have watched emergency room doctors use this technique between critical cases, finding their center in 30 seconds of mountain breathing. I have seen teachers calm entire classrooms simply by embodying mountain presence in the midst of chaos. The power lies not in the visualization itself, but in how quickly it reconnects you to your own unshakable nature. With practice, you can access mountain consciousness instantly, without even closing your eyes. In the middle of a heated argument, you become the mountain that listens with geological patience. Facing a difficult decision, you breathe with the mountain's wisdom that has weathered every possible storm. The mountain is always available within you, waiting to lend you its strength. Reflection: what situations in your life would benefit from mountain consciousness? How might your responses change if you could access this unshakable center in moments of pressure or conflict? Practice: the next time you feel stress rising, try the mountain breath technique for just 30 seconds. Notice not just how your body responds, but how your perspective on the stressful situation shifts when viewed from mountain consciousness. The river of compassion in difficult conversations. There are moments in every life when we must navigate conversations that feel like walking through a field of thorns, discussions about money with a spouse, confronting a colleague about poor performance, setting boundaries with a family member, or addressing hurt feelings with a friend. These are the times when our usual strategies fail us, when logic and emotion seem to be at war, when we most need the wisdom of water. Before entering any conversation that you know will be challenging, take a moment to prepare your inner landscape. Step away from the situation briefly. Even a trip to the bathroom or a walk around the building can provide the space you need. As you prepare, visualize your heart as the source of a great river, flowing with clarity and compassion. This river doesn't start in your heart, it flows through your heart from the infinite source of understanding that connects all beings. Like the mighty rivers that flow from mountain springs, your compassion arises from something larger than your personal will or desire to be right. Feel this river of understanding flowing into your heart space, cool and clear and inexhaustibly patient. Now, as you visualize entering the difficult conversation, see this river flowing from your heart toward the other person. This is not a strategy to manipulate them or get them to agree with you. This is your commitment to remain connected to wisdom and care even when the conversation becomes turbulent, even when they say things that trigger your defenses. Visualize the river as having two qualities: clarity and warmth. The clarity allows you to speak truth without cruelty, to be honest without being harsh. The warmth ensures that even difficult truths are delivered with genuine care for the other person's well-being. Like a river that flows around obstacles rather than fighting them, your words can find their way to the other person's understanding without creating unnecessary friction. As the conversation unfolds, when you feel yourself beginning to react from hurt or anger, return to the river visualization. Let whatever emotion is arising be carried downstream by this flow of compassion, not suppressed or denied, but held within something larger and wiser. Breathe into the image of water flowing smoothly around rocks, finding the most natural path without losing its essential nature. If the other person becomes defensive or attacks, see their reaction as rapids in the river, turbulent water that nonetheless flows toward the same destination. You don't need to fight the rapids or be thrown off course by them. Simply maintain your connection to the deeper current that carries both of you toward understanding, even when the surface appears chaotic. Sometimes you'll need to say things that disappoint or challenge the other person. When this happens, visualize your words as leaves floating on the river's surface, carried by love even when they bear difficult messages. Speak from the river's wisdom rather than from your wounded or frustrated places. Notice how this visualization changes not only what you say, but how you listen. From river consciousness, you can hear beneath the other person's words to the underlying needs and fears that drive their reactions. You become curious about their perspective rather than defensive about your own position. I once knew a manager who transformed her entire leadership style through this practice. Previously, difficult conversations had felt like battles she had to win or lose. But as she learned to speak from the river of compassion, she found she could address problems clearly while maintaining the trust and respect of her team. Productivity improved not because she became softer, but because people felt safe to be honest about challenges rather than hiding problems until they became crises. Reflection: think of a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. How might it unfold differently if you approached it from river consciousness rather than from fear or frustration? What would you most want the other person to feel beneath whatever challenging message you need to convey? Practice. Before your next potentially difficult conversation, spend 2 minutes visualizing the river of compassion flowing through your heart. Hold the intention to speak from this river rather than from your reactive emotions, and notice how both the process and outcome of the conversation shift. The weekly tree of gratitude. In the rhythm of our weeks, we can lose track of the countless gifts that surround us, focusing instead on what went wrong, what's missing, what needs to be fixed. Yet gratitude is perhaps the most powerful force for transformation available to us, not as a denial of life's difficulties, but as a recognition of the abundance that exists alongside every challenge. Choose one day each week, perhaps Sunday evening or Saturday morning, to practice what I call the tree of gratitude visualization. Find a quiet space where you won't be interrupted for 10 or 15 minutes. Sit comfortably with your spine naturally straight, like a tree that grows toward light while remaining rooted in earth. Begin by placing your hands on your legs and feeling your connection to whatever you're sitting on, chair, cushion, floor. This is the earth from which your tree of gratitude will grow. Visualize roots extending from the base of your spine down into this earth, not just the physical ground beneath you, but into the fundamental support that life provides, the air that requires no effort to breathe, the heart that beats without your conscious direction, the mysterious force that heals cuts and grows hair and creates new cells while you sleep. As you breathe naturally, let your awareness move to the base of your spine and visualize a tree beginning to grow there. This is not an ordinary tree, but a tree made of pure appreciation, pure recognition of gifts received. Feel the sturdy trunk of this tree growing upward through your body, representing your gratitude for the basic miracle of existence, for having been born, for consciousness itself, for the capacity to love and learn and grow. Now, thinking back over the past week, allow branches to grow from your trunk, one branch for each experience you feel grateful for. These might be obvious gifts, a beautiful sunset, a kind word from a friend, a problem that resolved itself, a moment of unexpected joy. But look also for the hidden gifts, the challenge that taught you patience, the delay that prevented you from making a mistake, the difficult person who showed you something about yourself you needed to see. Let each branch extend as far as your gratitude feels genuine. A small kindness might create a delicate branch with a few leaves. A profound experience of connection or beauty might generate a strong branch with abundant foliage. There's no right size, only authentic recognition of gifts received. As you visualize each branch, spend a moment really feeling the gratitude rather than just thinking about it. Let appreciation flow through your body like sap flowing through a living tree. Notice how gratitude feels different from happiness or excitement, deeper, more stable, more nourishing to your essential nature. If you encounter something from the week that feels difficult to be grateful for, don't force it. But see if you can find even a small branch of appreciation, perhaps gratitude for your own resilience, or for what the experience taught you, or simply for the fact that you survived it. Sometimes the most twisted branches produce the most beautiful fruit. When your tree feels complete, step back in your visualization and admire it. See how beautiful it is, how uniquely yours, how it reflects the particular gifts that life offered to you this week. Feel yourself as both the gardener who tended this tree and the earth from which it grew. Finally, visualize your tree of gratitude extending its roots even deeper into the earth and its branches even higher into the sky, connecting you to the vast web of support and beauty that sustains all life. Feel how your appreciation contributes something essential to this web, how your recognition of gifts creates more gifts, how gratitude itself becomes a gift you offer to the world. End by placing your hands on your heart and feeling the warmth of appreciation glowing there like a small sun. Carry this warmth with you as you move back into your week, knowing that next week you'll return to tend this inner garden again. Reflection: what would change in your life if you regularly acknowledged the gifts you receive? How might weekly gratitude practice affect not only your own well-being, but your capacity to be a gift to others? Practice. This week, try the tree of gratitude visualization. Notice not only what you feel grateful for, but how the practice of appreciation affects your awareness and mood in the days that follow. As I reach the end of sharing these daily practices with you, I am reminded of a truth that has guided my teaching for thousands of years: the most profound transformations come not from dramatic gestures, but from faithful attention to simple acts repeated with love. These practices are seeds. Plant them in the soil of your daily life, water them with consistent attention, and trust that they will grow according to their own nature, in their own time. Remember, you are not trying to become someone different through these practices. You are simply returning, day by day, breath by breath, to the natural wisdom that has always been your birthright. Like water returning to the sea, like seasons returning to their rhythm, like light returning each dawn, this too is a return to what has never truly been lost. The path of the Tao is not a destination to reach, but a way of walking that transforms every step into homecoming, every breath into prayer, every moment into an opportunity for the sacred to flower in the midst of ordinary life. Mirrors of wisdom, parables and case studies. The morning sun filters through my window as I write these words, casting gentle shadows that dance and shift like the very stories I am about to share with you. In ancient times, we understood that wisdom lives not in abstract concepts, but in the living tales that mirror our own journey back to ourselves. The parables that follow are like still ponds reflecting the sky. In their surface, you may glimpse your own face looking back, transformed by the light of understanding. Each story I offer you has emerged from the depths of human experience, polished smooth by the current of time and the touch of countless souls who have walked this path before us. Some spring from the well of ancient memory, others from the fresh waters of contemporary life. All carry the same essential truth, that when we learn to see with the heart's eye, reality becomes as malleable as clay in the potter's hands, reshaping itself to match the vision held in our deepest being. The parable of the artisan and the perfect vessel. Let me begin with Chang, a master potter who lived in the valley where the river bends toward the mountains. For 30 years, he had crafted vessels of extraordinary beauty, each one emerging from his will like a prayer made manifest in clay. Yet Chang carried within himself a secret burden. Despite his skill, he had never created what he considered the perfect pot, the one that would capture the very essence of completeness itself. Night after night, Chang would sit in his workshop, visualizing the perfect vessel. He would see it in his mind's eye, flawless proportions, unblemished glaze, a form so harmonious it would make the angels weep with joy. But when morning came and he placed his hands upon the clay, the pots that emerged, though beautiful, never matched the rigid perfection of his mental image. Each one fell short of his visualization, leaving him frustrated and increasingly distant from the joy that had first called him to work with earth and fire. One autumn evening, as the first frost kissed the workshop windows, an old woman appeared at Chang's door. Her clothes were simple, her manner gentle, but her eyes held the depth of mountain lakes. "I hear you make pots," she said, her voice carrying the whisper of wind through bamboo. "I make vessels," Chang replied, his tone heavy with years of dissatisfaction. "But I have never made the perfect one." The old woman smiled, settling herself on a small stool beside his wheel. "Show me how you create," she said. Chang demonstrated his technique, explaining how he visualized the perfect pot before beginning. The old woman listened quietly, occasionally nodding, her fingers absently tracing patterns in the clay dust that had settled on her robes. "Your vision is beautiful," she said when he finished, "but tell me, do you visualize the oak tree the acorn will become, or do you plant the acorn and tend to its daily growth?" Chang paused, his hands still wet with clay water. I suppose you tend to the growth. The oak knows its own nature." "Precisely," the old woman whispered. "And does the clay not also have its own nature, its own wisdom to share with your hands?" That night, after the old woman had departed like mist returning to the mountain, Chang sat before his wheel with a lump of clay. Instead of visualizing the perfect finished pot, he closed his eyes and placed his hands gently on the clay. He breathed deeply, feeling the earth's weight and moisture, its coolness against his palms. Then, slowly, he began to visualize something entirely different. He saw himself as part of an ancient conversation between human and earth, hands and clay, fire and water. He visualized not the outcome, but the process itself, the gentle pressure of his palms, the clay's response, the wheel's steady turning. He imagined himself as a participant in creation rather than its director, a dance partner following the clay's lead as much as guiding it. When he opened his eyes and began to work, something magical occurred. His hands moved with a fluidity he had never experienced. The clay seemed to rise and shape itself in harmony with his touch. He was not forcing it into a predetermined form but allowing it to become what it wished to become through their collaboration. The vessel that emerged was unlike anything Chang had ever created. It was not the perfect pot he had visualized for years, it was something more. It carried within its form an aliveness, a sense of having grown rather than been made. Its slight asymmetries felt intentional, like the natural lean of a tree growing toward light. Its surface held the subtle impressions of his fingers, recording the tenderness of their meeting. From that day forward, Chang's approach to his craft transformed completely. He learned to visualize the conversation between himself and the clay, the marriage of intention and surrender. His pots became renowned not for their technical perfection but for their soul, each one unique, alive, carrying within it the story of its own becoming. The Case of the Executive and the Digital Bamboo. Sarah Henderson sat in her corner office on the 42nd floor, watching the city pulse below her like a concrete heart pumping streams of traffic through its arteries. As vice president of operations for a major consulting firm, she commanded respect, wielded significant influence, and earned a salary that would have seemed mythical to her younger self. Yet as another heated email exchange flashed across her screen, the third conflict of the day, and it was barely noon, she felt as brittle as autumn leaves, ready to crumble at the next strong wind. The modern corporate world had taught Sarah to approach conflicts like a general preparing for battle. She would visualize herself winning arguments, crushing opposition, emerging victorious from every confrontation. Her mental rehearsals were elaborate war games where she anticipated every possible objection and prepared devastating responses. This approach had served her well in climbing the corporate ladder, but now, at the peak of her success, she found herself exhausted by the constant combat, her relationships with colleagues strained and her spirit worn thin as rice paper. The turning point came during a particularly brutal quarterly review meeting. Sarah had spent hours visualizing her presentation, imagining herself delivering each point with precision, deflecting criticism with surgical counterstrikes. But when the meeting began, everything unraveled. Her prepared visualization crumbled as unexpected questions arose, and she found herself rigid, unable to adapt, fighting against the flow of the conversation rather than navigating it skillfully. That evening, while searching online for stress management techniques, Sarah stumbled upon an article about Taoist principles and leadership. One phrase caught her attention: the bamboo that bends in the storm survives while the mighty oak breaks. Intrigued despite her skepticism, she found herself reading about Wu Wei, the art of effortless action. The concept fascinated her analytical mind. Here was an approach that suggested strength through flexibility, victory through yielding, power through gentleness. It was the opposite of everything she had been taught about corporate success, yet something deep within her recognized its truth, like remembering a half-forgotten melody from childhood. Sarah decided to experiment. The next morning, instead of visualizing herself as a warrior preparing for battle, she sat quietly in her office before the day's first meeting and imagined herself as bamboo. She visualized her spine as flexible yet strong, able to bend without breaking. She saw herself not as a fixed position to be defended but as a flowing presence that could adapt to whatever arose. The meeting that day was about budget cuts, typically a session filled with territorial disputes and ego clashes. But as tensions rose around the conference table, Sarah found herself responding differently. When challenged, instead of immediately counterattacking, she would pause and breathe, feeling herself bend like bamboo in wind. She listened more deeply, spoke more softly, and asked questions that opened space for understanding rather than building walls of defense. The transformation was remarkable. By visualizing herself as flexible bamboo rather than an immovable fortress, Sarah found she could navigate the meeting's turbulent currents with grace. When a colleague launched a sharp criticism at her department, instead of responding with equal force, she bent toward the feedback, acknowledging its validity where it existed and gently redirecting where it didn't. Like bamboo that returns to center after the storm passes, she maintained her essential position while yielding to the pressures around her. Over the following weeks, Sarah refined her bamboo visualization. She would begin each day imagining herself rooted deeply in the earth of her values and experience, yet flexible enough to sway with whatever winds the day might bring. Before difficult conversations, she would visualize her words flowing like water around obstacles rather than crashing against them like waves against rocks. The results surprised everyone, including Sarah herself. Her relationships with colleagues began to heal and deepen. Meetings she facilitated became more collaborative and productive. Her team, sensing her increased ease and flexibility, began to trust her leadership more completely. Most remarkably, her effectiveness actually increased as she learned to work with the natural rhythms and energies of her workplace rather than constantly swimming against the current. 6 months later, Sarah was promoted to senior vice president, not because she had become better at corporate warfare, but because she had learned the ancient art of leading through presence and adaptability. Her success became a living example of how visualization aligned with natural principles could transform not just individual experience but entire organizational cultures. The Legend of the Farmer and the Interior Seasons. In the valley where I once walked as a young man, there lived a farmer named Wei who understood the language of the earth better than most men understand their own hearts. Wei's fields were legendary for their fertility, his crops the envy of surrounding villages. Yet for all his success with the external seasons, Wei struggled with the seasons of his inner life, blown about by emotions like a leaf in an autumn storm. When joy visited him, Wei would abandon all caution, working his fields until exhaustion, making grand plans and extravagant purchases, as if summer would last forever. When sorrow darkened his door, he would sink into despair so profound that he neglected even basic care of his crops, convinced that winter had settled permanently in his soul. Anger would blaze through him like wildfire, burning his relationships with family and neighbors. Fear would freeze him like unexpected frost, leaving him unable to make necessary decisions for his farm and family. This emotional chaos was destroying not only Wei's inner peace but his practical life as well. His wife, May, watched with growing concern as her husband succeeded brilliantly in working with the seasons of the earth while being tyrannized by the weather patterns of his own heart. One spring morning, as Wei sat despairing over a business decision he couldn't make, paralyzed between the fire of ambition and the ice of fear, May approached him in their garden. She knelt beside him among the emerging shoots of spring vegetables and spoke with the gentle firmness of a woman who loves truly. "My husband," she said, "you understand the seasons of the earth so well. You know that spring's enthusiasm must be balanced with summer's steady work. You know that autumn's harvest requires winter's rest. Yet you treat the seasons of your heart as if they were permanent weather, not natural cycles to be honored and worked with." Wei looked at his wife with new eyes, seeing the wisdom that had always been there. That evening, instead of being swept away by his current emotional state, he began to experiment with a different approach. He started visualizing his inner life as he would his fields, subject to natural seasons that could be understood, prepared for, and skillfully navigated. When he felt the fire of anger beginning to burn within him, instead of either suppressing it or being consumed by it, Wei would sit quietly and visualize himself in summer. He would see the necessary energy of summer sun, powerful but channeled productively. He would breathe deeply and ask himself, how can I use this summer energy to accomplish what needs doing, without burning down the forest? Gradually, he learned to harness anger's energy for productive action while avoiding its destructive potential. When sadness visited him, as it naturally does all who live fully, Wei learned to visualize himself in autumn. He would see the necessary letting go of what was finished, the gathering of wisdom from experience, the preparation for rest and renewal. Instead of fighting winter or trying to remain permanently in summer, he would allow himself to grieve fully while trusting that spring would return to his heart as surely as it returned to his fields. During periods of fear and uncertainty, Wei would visualize winter in his inner landscape. He learned to see fear not as an enemy but as winter's wisdom, the natural caution that protects the seed during the long cold months. He would ask himself, what needs protecting during this winter time? How can I rest and conserve energy for the spring that will surely come? Most beautiful of all was how Wei learned to work with the spring seasons of his heart, those times when enthusiasm and new possibilities burst forth like crocuses through snow. Instead of rushing forward without wisdom, he would visualize himself as a gardener in spring, carefully planning where to place his energy, which seeds to plant, how to balance excitement with patience. As Wei developed this practice of inner seasonal awareness, his outer life transformed as well. His farming became even more skillful as he learned to work with his natural energy cycles rather than against them. During his inner autumns, he would focus on harvesting and planting. During inner winters, he would rest and study. Inner springs brought new projects and relationships, while inner summers provided the steady energy to see them through. His marriage with May deepened as she watched her husband become a master not only of the earth's seasons but of the heart's seasons as well. Their love learned to flow with natural rhythms, sometimes the passionate warmth of summer, sometimes the cozy intimacy of winter, always rooted in the deep soil of understanding and acceptance. Way's approach spread throughout the valley as neighbors observed his increased peace and effectiveness. Many began to practice their own forms of inner seasonal visualization, creating a community more in harmony with both the rhythms of the earth and the natural cycles of the human heart. The Anxious Youth and the Breathing Mountain. Li Chen was 23 when anxiety first wrapped its tentacles around his chest like ivy strangling a young tree. A gifted student pursuing advanced studies in engineering, he had always been able to solve problems through analysis and effort. But anxiety proved immune to his intellectual approaches. The harder he tried to think his way out of worry, the tighter its grip became. The anxiety manifested physically with devastating intensity. His heart would race like a wild horse, his breath would become shallow and rapid, his mind would spin with catastrophic predictions about the future. Sleep became elusive, concentration nearly impossible. Li Chen felt as if he were drowning in air, suffocating in the very breath of life itself. Traditional treatments helped somewhat, but Li Chen longed for something more, a way to work with his anxiety that felt natural and sustainable rather than like another battle to fight. His search led him to meditation classes, where he first encountered the concept of visualizing oneself as stable and unmovable as a mountain. Initially, Li Chen approached this visualization with his characteristic intensity, trying to force himself to feel mountain-like through sheer mental effort. He would sit rigidly, visualizing himself as granite and steel, attempting to suppress his anxiety through willpower. But this approach only created more tension, like trying to calm turbulent water by pressing down on its surface. The breakthrough came during a hiking trip in the mountains outside his city. Exhausted from another sleepless night, Li Chen had climbed to a high meadow and collapsed on the grass, too tired to maintain his usual vigilance against anxious thoughts. As he lay there, defeated and discouraged, he found himself naturally beginning to breathe in rhythm with the vast mountain beneath him. Instead of visualizing himself as a mountain, he began to feel the mountain breathing through him. He sensed the slow, deep rhythm of geological time, the unhurried expansion and contraction that had continued for millions of years. The mountain's breath was so slow, so deep, that Li Chen's own breathing naturally began to match its ancient rhythm. This was different from his previous attempts to control his breathing. He wasn't forcing his breath to slow down, instead, he was allowing himself to be breathed by something larger than his individual anxiety. The mountain's presence seemed to surround and permeate his small, worried self, offering a vast context within which his fears could exist without overwhelming him. Li Chen began practicing this mountain breathing visualization daily. Each morning before classes and each evening before sleep, he would sit quietly and imagine himself not as separate from a mountain, but as part of the mountain's breathing body. He would visualize his inhale as the mountain drawing breath through countless trees and meadows, his exhale as the mountain releasing the day's accumulated tensions through wind and stream. When anxiety arose during his daily life, which it still did regularly, Li Chen learned to pause and reconnect with the mountain's breath. Even in the middle of a crowded classroom or a stressful exam, he could close his eyes for a moment and feel himself held within the mountain's vast, slow breathing. The anxiety didn't disappear, but it found its proper proportion within the immensity of geological time and patience. Gradually, Li Chen discovered that the mountain's breathing was teaching him something profound about the nature of permanence and change. His anxiety had convinced him that worried thoughts and physical sensations were solid and permanent, requiring constant resistance. But as he breathed with the mountain, he began to experience even intense anxiety as weather passing over the mountain's face, real but temporary, natural but not permanent. The mountain visualization evolved over time. Li Chen began to see his anxious thoughts as clouds passing over mountain peaks, his physical sensations as seasonal weather systems that would naturally shift and change. The mountain didn't resist the storms that crossed its face, it simply remained present and breathing through whatever weather appeared. This practice didn't cure Li Chen's anxiety, and he came to understand that cure wasn't the goal. Instead, he learned to carry anxiety differently, the way a mountain carries weather. His breathing became naturally deeper and slower. His relationship with his own thoughts transformed from constant wrestling to spacious observing. His body learned to relax even in the presence of anxiety, trusting in the mountain's enduring stability that lived within his own breath. 2 years later, Li Chen began teaching his mountain breathing technique to other students struggling with anxiety. He discovered that sharing the practice only deepened his own connection to the vast, patient presence that breathes through all things, as steady and reliable as the mountains themselves. The parable of the invisible bridge. In the mountain village where my grandmother once lived, there dwelt 2 sisters whose love had curdled into bitterness over a dispute about their inheritance. Ming and Li had been inseparable as children, sharing secrets and dreams like 2 streams flowing toward the same sea. But when their parents died, leaving behind a small tea shop and modest savings, disagreement over the division of property carved a chasm between them as deep as the valley that separated their village from the neighboring peak. For 7 years, the sisters maintained their bitter separation. Though they lived within walking distance of each other, they might as well have inhabited different worlds. Ming operated the tea shop with growing resentment, convinced that Li had manipulated their parents into leaving her additional money. Li, now married and living across the village square, nurtured her own grievances about Ming's handling of the business and the family recipes she felt were being dishonored. The whole village suffered from their conflict. Family celebrations became exercises in diplomatic complexity, with relatives forced to choose sides or navigate the exhausting work of keeping the sisters apart. Children who had grown up calling both women auntie found themselves caught in a web of adult animosity they couldn't understand. Ming, the elder sister, carried the heavier burden of bitterness. Each day as she prepared tea in the shop their parents had loved, she would rehearse her grievances like prayer beads, counting each real or imagined slight until her heart became as brittle as autumn leaves. She would visualize confrontations with Li, imagining herself delivering devastating speeches that would finally make her sister understand the depth of her wounds. These visualizations only fed her anger, creating elaborate scenarios of vindication that left her feeling more isolated and righteous with each passing day. The transformation began during the festival of the autumn moon, when tradition called for families to gather and share stories of gratitude. Ming sat alone in her tea shop that evening, watching through the window as other families celebrated together. The loneliness struck her with unexpected force, not just the absence of Li, but the absence of the woman she herself had been before bitterness took root in her heart. That night, instead of her usual rehearsal of grievances, Ming found herself remembering Li as a child, her infectious laugh, her gentle hands nursing injured birds back to health, her way of making even ordinary moments feel touched with magic. The memories came not as weapons to use against the present Li, but as gifts from a deeper truth that had been buried under years of resentment. As she sat with these memories, Ming began to visualize something entirely new. Instead of imagining herself delivering crushing speeches to her sister, she began to see a bridge of light stretching between their 2 hearts. The bridge was invisible to physical eyes but more real than stone and mortar. She visualized herself walking slowly across this bridge, not to attack or defend, but simply to remember who Li really was beneath the armor of their conflict. The visualization felt strange at first, almost like betraying her carefully maintained position. But as Ming continued to see this bridge of light connecting their hearts, something in her chest began to soften like ice touched by spring sun. She realized she had been visualizing separation for so long that it had become her reality. What if she began to visualize connection instead? Night after night, Ming would sit quietly after closing the tea shop and imagine this invisible bridge. She would see light flowing both directions, from her heart to Li's and back again. She would visualize not the Li who had hurt her, but the essential Li, the sister soul she had known before fear and pain built walls between them. Remarkably, as Ming practiced this bridge visualization, she began to notice changes in their rare, unavoidable encounters. Where before Li's presence would trigger immediate defensive anger, Ming found herself curious about her sister's life. She caught herself wondering if Lee was happy, if her children were well, if she ever missed their old closeness. The miracle occurred 3 months later during the spring planting festival. Ming was arranging flowers for the tea shop's altar when Lee appeared in her doorway, the first time she had entered the shop in 7 years. Both sisters stood frozen for a moment, decades of habit preparing them for familiar patterns of coldness or conflict. But something had shifted in the invisible realm where reconciliation is born. Lee later told others that she had been experiencing dreams of bridges and had felt an inexplicable pull to visit the shop where they had played as children. Ming, drawing on months of visualizing connection rather than separation, found herself saying something that surprised them both. "Sister, would you like some tea?" The healing didn't happen all at once. Years of separation don't dissolve in a single moment. But the invisible bridge that Ming had built through visualization provided a pathway for their love to remember itself. Conversations that might have become arguments found different directions. Misunderstandings that once felt like evidence of permanent incompatibility became opportunities for deeper understanding. Within a year, the sisters were working together in the tea shop, combining Ming's business experience with Lee's remembered knowledge of their parents' secret recipes. The village, watching this transformation, began to understand something about the invisible bridges that connect all hearts, waiting always for someone to remember they exist and begin the slow, patient work of crossing over. The case of the blocked artist and the rediscovered spring. David Martinez had been a professional graphic designer for 15 years when creativity abandoned him like a lover slipping away in the night. Once, ideas had flowed through him effortlessly, vibrant concepts and visual solutions emerging from some inexhaustible inner spring. But gradually, almost imperceptibly at first, that spring had diminished to a trickle, then dried up completely, leaving behind only the dusty riverbed of technical skill without inspiration. The creative block manifested as a peculiar form of torture. David retained all his technical abilities, his mastery of software, his understanding of design principles, his professional expertise. But when he sat before his computer or drawing tablet, searching for that spark of original vision, he found only empty space where creativity used to live. It was like being a musician who could still play every note perfectly but could no longer hear the music between the notes. Professional pressure intensified his struggle. Clients expected the same innovative solutions that had built his reputation. Deadlines demanded inspiration on schedule. David found himself working longer hours to produce results that once would have emerged naturally in minutes. Each project became a battle against the blank page, won through grinding effort rather than flowing creation. Desperate to reconnect with his creative source, David tried everything the contemporary world offered: brainstorming techniques, creative workshops, productivity apps, even designer drugs rumored to enhance artistic vision. He visualized success obsessively, imagining himself producing brilliant work, winning awards, impressing clients. But these visualizations felt hollow, like echoes in an empty room, and the more he chased inspiration, the more elusive it became. The turning point arrived during a weekend retreat to the mountains, not a creative workshop, but a simple hiking trip with his nephew, a 10-year-old boy whose natural wonder David hoped might somehow ignite his own dormant spark. As they walked along a forest path, his nephew suddenly stopped and pointed excitedly at a small spring emerging from beneath a moss-covered rock. "Look, Uncle David. The water just comes out of nowhere. Where do you think it starts?" David knelt beside the spring, watching clear water bubble up from hidden depths. His nephew's question triggered something deeper than intellectual curiosity. For the first time in months, David found himself genuinely wondering rather than desperately searching. Where did this water begin its journey? What underground sources fed this emergence? How long had it been traveling through darkness before finding this moment of visible flow? That evening, sitting by the cabin fireplace while his nephew slept, David began to contemplate his own creativity differently. Instead of visualizing the outcomes he wanted to create, successful projects, brilliant solutions, recognition, he began to visualize himself drinking from the same source that fed all creativity, the underground spring that nourished every artist, musician, writer, and visionary throughout history. He imagined this source not as something he owned or controlled, but as something he could connect with through presence and receptivity. Like the mountain spring that emerged naturally when conditions were right, creativity might flow through him when he stopped trying to force it and instead prepared the conditions for its natural emergence. David began a new practice. Each morning before work, he would sit quietly and visualize himself beside a deep, clear spring hidden in the mountains of his inner landscape. He would see himself cupping his hands and drinking deeply from waters that connected him to every creative soul who had ever lived. He would visualize this water flowing through his hands, his eyes, his imagination, not as something he possessed but as something that possessed him in the most wonderful way. This visualization was radically different from his previous desperate attempts to manufacture inspiration. Instead of trying to create creativity, he was visualizing himself as a conduit for creativity that already existed in inexhaustible abundance. Like the mountain spring that didn't create water but simply provided a clear channel for water's natural flow, David began to see himself as a clear channel for creative energy that was always available. The results amazed him. Within weeks, ideas began flowing again, not as products of effortful thinking, but as gifts received from the wellspring he visited each morning. His designs recovered their original freshness while gaining a new depth that reflected his transformed understanding of the creative process. Clients noticed a change immediately, describing his new work as more soulful and surprisingly moving. More importantly, David's relationship with creativity itself transformed. He no longer lived in fear of the spring running dry, because he understood that he wasn't the source of creativity but simply a grateful participant in its endless flow. This knowing brought a peace and joy to his work that he had never experienced, even during his most productive early years. 6 months later, David began teaching workshops for other blocked creatives, sharing the spring visualization that had restored his connection to the creative source. He discovered that helping others find their way to this inner spring only deepened his own access to its waters, creating a community of artists who understood themselves as grateful servants of the same inexhaustible creativity that flows through all things. The Wise Woman in the Lake's Mirror. At the edge of the village where I spent my final years lived an elderly woman named Crane, whose journey to wisdom had been carved from the stone of profound suffering. For 60 years, Crane had searched for her true self in the mirrors that life provides, in the eyes of her beloved husband, in the faces of her children, in the approval of neighbors, in the reflection of her accomplishments and failures. When her husband died young, leaving her with 3 small children, Crane searched for herself in the role of the devoted widow. When her children grew and married, she sought her identity in being the perfect mother and grandmother. When age brought illness and physical limitations, she struggled to find herself in the diminished capacities that remained. Each mirror seemed to show her a different person, leaving her confused about which reflection revealed her true face. Crane's searching had intensified after her children urged her to move to a senior living facility. Though comfortable and well cared for, she felt more lost than ever, surrounded by other souls who seemed equally uncertain about who they had become in these autumn years of life. She would sit by her window for hours, looking out at the small lake behind the facility, feeling as though she were dissolving like mist with no substance to hold on to. One morning, stirred by restlessness she couldn't name, Crane walked down to the lake's edge. The water was perfectly still, creating a flawless mirror of the sky above. As she gazed into this natural mirror, expecting to see her aged face looking back, something extraordinary occurred. Instead of focusing on her reflection, her attention was drawn to the perfect stillness of the water's surface itself. For the first time in years, Crane wasn't looking for herself in a reflection but simply experiencing the peace of the mirror-like stillness. In that moment of not seeking, not searching, not trying to find herself, she encountered something vast and quiet that she recognized immediately as her deepest nature, not the changing images reflected in life's mirrors, but the unchanging awareness that had witnessed every reflection throughout her long journey. Crane began returning to the lake each morning, not to see herself reflected in its surface, but to remember herself as the stillness that made reflection possible. She would sit quietly on the wooden bench, visualizing herself not as the face in the mirror but as the mirror's perfect receptivity, spacious, clear, unmarked by the images that appeared and disappeared in its depths. This visualization transformed her understanding of identity completely. She began to see that all her life she had been mistaking herself for the reflections rather than recognizing herself as the awareness in which all reflections appeared. The devoted wife, the struggling widow, the loving mother, the aging grandmother, all were real experiences but temporary images, like clouds passing across the sky's face without staining its essential blueness. As Crane deepened her practice of lake mirror visualization, remarkable changes occurred in her daily life. The anxiety about who she was supposed to be in this final chapter of life dissolved like morning mist. Interactions with other residents became more spontaneous and genuine as she stopped trying to maintain a particular image of herself. She found herself responding to each moment from a place of natural wisdom rather than rehearsed roles. Most beautifully, Crane began to see others with the same clear perception she was cultivating toward herself. Instead of relating to her fellow residents through the lens of their various ailments, limitations, or social personalities, she began to recognize in each of them the same clear awareness that she was discovering in herself. Conversations deepened, friendships blossomed, and a quality of peace spread through her section of the facility like ripples from a stone dropped in still water. Other residents began asking Crane about the source of her evident contentment. She would invite them to join her morning walks to the lake, sharing the simple practice of gazing not at their own reflections but at the stillness that made reflection possible. "We have been looking for ourselves in the changing images," she would say gently, "when all along we are the unchanging clarity in which all images appear and disappear." A small community formed around these morning lake visits, elderly souls discovering together that aging could be not just the accumulation of losses but a stripping away of false identities that revealed the timeless essence underneath. They learned to visualize themselves as the lake's perfect stillness, present to all experience without being disturbed by any particular experience, clear enough to reflect whatever appeared while remaining essentially unchanged. In her final years, Crane became known throughout the facility as someone who had found what everyone was seeking. But when people asked her what she had discovered, she would simply smile and point toward the lake. "I stopped looking for myself in the water's surface," she would say, "and remember that I am the stillness in which all reflections dance." Moments for reflection. As these stories settle into the quiet spaces of your heart like seeds finding fertile soil, take a moment to breathe deeply and feel which narrative resonated most strongly with your own journey. Did you recognize yourself in the potter learning to collaborate with clay rather than dominate it? Perhaps in the executive discovering strength through flexibility, or the artist reconnecting with creativity's source. Consider how each story reveals the same essential truth approached from different angles, that when we align our visualization with natural principles rather than forcing our will upon reality, transformation occurs as naturally as seasons changing or rivers finding their way to the sea. Notice how none of these transformations happen through intense effort but rather through the gentle art of learning to see differently, to visualize in harmony with the Tao's effortless flow. Reflect on the mirrors in your own life, the people, situations, and challenges that seem to reflect back who you are. Are you, like Crane, sometimes mistaking yourself for the reflections rather than recognizing yourself as the clear awareness in which all reflections appear? What would shift in your daily experience if you began to visualize yourself as the lake's stillness rather than the images dancing on its surface? Practice for integration. Choose one story that spoke to your current situation and spend the next 7 days exploring its core visualization. If you connected with the bamboo executive, begin each challenging day by seeing yourself as flexible yet rooted. If the mountain breathing resonated, practice feeling yourself breathed by something vast and patient. If the invisible bridge called to you, visualize light connecting your heart to someone from whom you feel separated. Each morning, sit quietly for 5 minutes and enter the visualization that chose you. Don't force any particular outcome, but simply rest in the imagery, allowing it to work its gentle alchemy within your consciousness. Notice throughout the day how this practice begins to influence your responses to ordinary situations, bringing more naturalness and ease to your interactions with the ever-changing world around you. The Journey of 30 Moons, a practical program. As I watch the moon complete its ancient cycle, appearing full and radiant against the dark velvet of night, I am reminded of the profound wisdom embedded in nature's rhythms. Just as this celestial companion waxes and wanes in perfect timing, never hurrying, never forcing, so too must our inner transformation unfold with patient grace. Tonight, I invite you to embark upon a journey of 30 days, 30 moons of practice, that will gently guide you into the depths of Taoist visualization, where reality becomes as malleable as morning mist touched by dawn's first light. The number 30 holds sacred significance in the Tao. It represents completion without finality, a full cycle that prepares for endless renewal. Like the 30 spokes of a wheel that find their power in the empty hub at their center, these 30 days will draw their transformative strength not from forced effort, but from the spacious awareness you cultivate within. I have witnessed countless seekers stumble in their spiritual journey by treating practice like a mountain to be conquered rather than a river to be entered. They approach their first day with the fierce determination of warriors preparing for battle, only to find themselves exhausted and discouraged when the third or fourth day arrives without the miraculous transformation they expected. But you, dear friend, will walk a different path, the pathless path of Wu Wei, where each step feels as natural as breathing, as inevitable as water flowing downhill toward the sea. Week 1, Planting the Seeds, Foundation and Purification. The first 7 days of your journey are like the gentle preparation of soil before planting. A wise gardener knows that the most beautiful flowers emerge not from hasty sowing, but from patient cultivation of the earth itself. These initial days will clear away the accumulated debris of forced visualization and analytical thinking, creating fertile ground for the spontaneous arising of authentic inner vision. On your first morning, as the sun's rays pierce through your window like golden threads weaving light into darkness, sit quietly and simply observe your breath. Not controlling it, not improving it, merely witnessing the natural rhythm that has sustained you since birth. After 3 breaths, allow an image to arise, not any specific image, but whatever appears naturally in the soft space behind your closed eyes. Perhaps you see a gentle stream, or the swaying branch of a pine tree, or simply a warm, golden light. Whatever emerges, greet it like an old friend returning after a long journey. This is your first taste of visualization without effort, of seeing without striving. During these initial days, you may notice resistance arising, the mind's habitual tendency to judge, compare, and demand immediate results. When this happens, remember the wisdom of water encountering a stone in its path. Water doesn't argue with the stone or try to destroy it, it simply flows around, maintaining its essential nature while adapting its course. Let your awareness be like this water, flowing around the stones of doubt and impatience without losing its fundamental serenity. Each evening of this first week, before sleep claims you, practice what I call the releasing visualization. Imagine all the day's accumulated tensions, worries, and mental formations as autumn leaves falling gently from the tree of your being. Watch them drift down, not with urgency or force, but with the natural grace of leaves that have completed their season. See them settling onto the rich earth of your deeper consciousness, where they will decompose into the very nutrients that will feed tomorrow's growth. Week 2, Watering the Garden, Development and Consistency. As you enter the second week, like a gardener who has prepared the soil and now tends the emerging seedlings, you begin to expand your practice into the fertile territory of relationships and work. This is where many practitioners stumble, believing that spiritual practice must be confined to meditation cushions and quiet corners. But the Tao knows no such artificial boundaries, it flows equally through morning contemplation and afternoon meetings, through solitary reflection and intimate conversation. Begin each day of this second week with what I call the 3 treasures visualization. As you sit in quiet stillness, allow 3 images to arise naturally. First, see yourself as deeply rooted as an ancient oak, drawing vital essence, Jing, from the earth beneath you. Feel this rootedness in your bones, your blood, your very cellular structure. Then, visualize the free-flowing energy, Qi, of your breath as a gentle breeze moving through the branches of your being, carrying vitality to every leaf, every twig of your existence. Finally, allow your spirit, Shen, to appear as sunlight filtering through these branches, illuminating everything it touches with consciousness itself. Now comes the beautiful challenge, carrying this vision with you as you move through your day. During conversations, especially difficult ones, practice visualizing yourself as that same rooted oak, unmovable in your essential nature yet flexible in your branches. When someone's words feel harsh or critical, see them as strong winds that may bend your branches but cannot uproot your fundamental stability. This is not pretense or visualization for its own sake. This is remembering your true nature and allowing that remembrance to inform your responses. In your workplace, experiment with the flowing water visualization. Before entering meetings or tackling challenging projects, spend 30 seconds seeing yourself as water entering a new landscape. Water doesn't fight the terrain, it finds the natural pathways, fills the spaces that need filling, and moves with purposeful gentleness toward its destination. Notice how this inner image affects your approach to problems, your interaction with colleagues, your relationship to stress and deadlines. The evening practice of this second week involves what I call relationship gardening. Before sleep, bring to mind the people you encounter during the day, family members, coworkers, strangers in the grocery store. For each person, visualize a small seed of compassion being planted in the garden of your heart. Some seeds represent easy relationships, like flowers that bloom readily in good soil. Others represent more challenging connections, like hardy mountain plants that require patience and special care. Send each seed a gentle blessing, not trying to change anyone, but simply nurturing the possibility of understanding and harmony. Week 3, Visible Growth, Integration and Application. By the third week, something remarkable begins to happen. Like a garden where the first green shoots have pushed through the soil, reaching eagerly toward the light, your inner landscape starts showing visible signs of transformation. This is both exciting and sometimes unsettling. Old patterns of thinking and reacting begin to feel foreign, while new ways of being haven't yet become fully familiar. This week focuses on what I call crisis as cultivation, using life's inevitable challenges as opportunities to deepen your practice rather than abandon it. When faced with stress, conflict, or uncertainty, instead of reverting to old habits of mental struggle, you now have access to the profound stability of Taoist visualization. But remember, this is not about perfection or never feeling disturbed, it's about returning more quickly to your center, like a tree that bends in the storm but springs back to its natural posture once the winds calm. Begin each morning this week with the mountain breathing practice. Visualize yourself as a majestic mountain, not rigid or hard, but embodying the kind of presence that has witnessed countless seasons, storms, and changes while remaining fundamentally unshaken. See your breath as the slow, deep respiration of this mountain, drawing in the clean air of dawn and releasing the stale energies of yesterday. Feel your chest expanding with the spaciousness of mountain peaks, your exhale as gentle as morning mist rising from pine forests. This week, when difficult emotions arise, anger, sadness, anxiety, frustration, practice the weather pattern visualization. Instead of identifying completely with these emotions or trying to push them away, see them as weather systems moving through the sky of your awareness. A storm of anger may bring dark clouds and lightning, but you remain the vast sky itself, unchanged by whatever weather patterns pass through. Watch the storm with interest rather than resistance, knowing that all weather is temporary, all patterns eventually pass. Apply this same principle to challenging life situations. If you're dealing with a difficult relationship, financial stress, or health concerns, practice visualizing yourself as that unchanging sky, vast enough to hold whatever storm clouds appear. This doesn't mean becoming passive or avoiding appropriate action, rather, it means acting from a place of spacious awareness rather than reactive compression. The evening practice this week involves day integration, a gentle review of how your visualizations affected your actual experience. Without judgment or harsh self-criticism, simply notice, when did you remember to connect with your inner mountain? When did you forget and get swept away by the weather of emotions? How did people respond differently when you approached them from this centered space? This isn't about scoring yourself or measuring success. It's about cultivating the gentle awareness that allows practice to refine itself naturally. Week 4, Full Flowering, Mastery and Transcendence. As you enter the fourth week, like a gardener witnessing the full flowering of carefully tended plants, you begin to experience what I call effortless effort, a state where Taoist visualization becomes as natural as breathing, as automatic as the heart's beating. This is not the mastery of control, but the mastery of letting go so completely that your true nature can express itself without obstruction. This week's morning practice involves what I call formless visualization. Instead of working with specific images like mountains, water, or trees, you learn to rest in the spacious awareness from which all images arise. Sit quietly and, after a few centering breaths, release even the need to visualize anything at all. Simply be present to the creative emptiness behind your eyes, the pregnant silence behind your thoughts. From this space, if images arise naturally, welcome them. If no images come, welcome that too. This is the ultimate Wu way of visualization, being so relaxed in the process that you don't even need the process. During this week, begin experimenting with what I call invisible practice, maintaining the essence of Taoist visualization even when you're not formally practicing. Whether you're washing dishes, walking to your car, or listening to a friend share their troubles, can you remain connected to that vast, spacious awareness? Can you move through your day from the same centered place you cultivate in formal sitting? This isn't about maintaining any specific visualization, but about carrying the quality of open, present awareness that makes authentic visualization possible. The real test of this week comes in moments of surprise or sudden challenge. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when you receive unexpected bad news, when technology fails at the worst possible moment, can you remember, even for a split second, the vast sky of your awareness? Can you find, in that moment of reactivity, even a tiny space of choice about how to respond? This is the practical flowering of all your practice, not perfect serenity in controlled conditions, but the ability to access your centered nature even in life's messy, unpredictable moments. Days of integration, the harvest of wisdom. The final 2 days of your 30-day journey are like the harvest time in farming communities, a time for gathering what has grown, celebrating what has been accomplished, and preparing seeds for future plantings. This is not an ending, but a transition from structured learning to autonomous practice, from following a prescribed path to walking your own unique way within the vast landscape of Tao. On day 29, spend time in what I call gratitude visualization. Without trying to achieve anything or go anywhere, simply rest in appreciation for this journey you've undertaken. See each day of practice as a gift you gave to yourself, each moment of remembering your true nature as a small miracle of awakening. Visualize your past self from 30 days ago, perhaps stressed, perhaps seeking, perhaps doubtful that real transformation was possible. Send that earlier version of yourself a blessing of compassion and encouragement, the way you might comfort a dear friend facing a difficult journey. On the final day, practice what I call commitment without attachment. This seems paradoxical until you experience it directly, making a heartfelt commitment to continue this path while holding that commitment lightly, like a bird that chooses to return to your hand each day but is never caged. Visualize your future self continuing to practice, not from grim determination or spiritual ambition, but from the same natural impulse that draws flowers towards sunlight. Take a moment now to reflect. What has shifted in your relationship to yourself over these 30 days? What do you notice about the quality of your presence with others? How has your approach to life's challenges evolved? Consider this: if visualization practice became as natural as breathing for you, how might that change the way you move through tomorrow? How might it affect the ripples you create in the lives of those around you? Practice for integration. Each evening for the next week, spend 5 minutes sitting quietly and asking yourself, what wants to be visualized through me tonight? Trust whatever arises, whether it's an image of healing for someone you love, a vision of creative solution to a work challenge, or simply the image of yourself resting deeply in your own inherent wholeness. This practice will help you transition from structured exercises to spontaneous, authentic inner vision. Remember, dear friend, that these 30 days are not a graduation but a commencement. Like the moon that completes its cycle only to begin anew, your journey with Taoist visualization is an endless spiral of deepening, each return to familiar practices revealing new layers of wisdom, new depths of transformation. The reality that shifts through authentic visualization is not just the external world of circumstances and relationships, it is the fundamental reality of who you know yourself to be, and from that transformed self-knowing, all else naturally flows into greater harmony. As we move forward together toward the final chapter of our journey, carry with you the confidence that comes not from having mastered a technique, but from having remembered your own natural capacity to dance with life's creative forces. You are ready now for the deepest teaching of all, how to make this way of seeing, this way of being, your permanent home in the world. The eternal return to center. Integration, commitment, and next steps. As I sit here in the gentle twilight of our journey together, I feel the quiet satisfaction of a gardener watching the last light of day illuminate a garden that has grown beyond all expectations. We have walked together through 8 phases of discovery, and now we arrive at what some might call an ending, but what I prefer to think of as a doorway into the endless dance of becoming. The ancient pine outside my window has stood for over 2 centuries, yet each spring it produces new growth, each season it responds freshly to wind and rain. This is the nature of true spiritual practice, not a destination reached, but a way of being that renews itself continuously, like a spring that flows eternally yet never repeats the same water twice. You have learned to visualize without forcing, to see with the heart's eye, to allow reality to shift through the gentle power of aligned vision. But perhaps the most important realization awaiting you now is this: there is no graduation from the Tao, no final mastery to achieve. There is only the eternal return to center, the endless rediscovery of what has always been here, waiting patiently beneath the surface of your everyday awareness. The art of never arriving, always being. In our culture of achievements and milestones, we are conditioned to think in terms of getting somewhere spiritually. We imagine enlightenment as a peak to climb, wisdom as a treasure to possess, peace as a state to attain and maintain. But the Tao teaches us something far more liberating: the art of never arriving while always being exactly where we need to be. Think of the river that flows past your favorite meditation spot. Is it trying to get somewhere? Is it frustrated by the stones that redirect its path, or the banks that contain its flow? The river simply is, moment by moment, responding with perfect fluidity to whatever it encounters. It embodies its riverine nature completely, whether flowing through narrow gorges or spreading wide across meadows. Your visualization practice can become like this river. Not a tool you use to manipulate reality into preferred shapes, but a way of being that expresses your deepest nature in each moment. Some days your inner vision will be crystal clear, flowing with the power of mountain streams. Other days it may feel muddy and slow, like water moving through rich bottomland. Both are perfect expressions of the river's nature. I invite you to release any lingering attachment to getting it right with your practice. Instead, cultivate what I call beginner's freshness, the capacity to approach each visualization as if for the first time. When you visualize the mountain's breath during a stressful meeting, let it be new. When you see yourself as bamboo bending before criticism, discover something you've never noticed before. When you practice the morning connection with your 3 treasures, allow today's version to surprise you. This freshness keeps your practice alive, prevents it from becoming mechanical ritual. More importantly, it aligns you with the Tao's own nature, eternally creative, never repeating itself exactly, always birthing reality anew in each moment. Creating your own Tao visual. Over these weeks together, you have learned specific techniques, practiced particular visualizations, followed guided pathways into the landscape of inner vision. These have been like learning scales on a musical instrument, necessary foundations that train your capacity for spontaneous creation. Now comes the time to compose your own music. The principles you've absorbed, Wu Wei, yin-yang balance, the 5 elements, spontaneous naturalness, these remain constant like the laws governing how rivers flow. But the specific ways you apply them, the particular images that speak to your soul, the unique rhythm of your practice, these should emerge from your own authentic nature, like a signature that no one else can replicate. Start by noticing which visualizations have felt most alive for you. Was it the breathing mountain during stress? The flowing water in relationships? The garden imagery for cultivating abundance? These preferences are not random, they point toward aspects of the Tao that most readily flow through your particular being. Begin experimenting with variations. If mountain breathing resonates, what happens when you visualize yourself as different types of mountains: a gentle rolling hill during mild anxiety, a towering peak during major challenges, a volcanic mountain when you need to access creative fire? If water imagery speaks to you, explore visualizing yourself as rain nourishing others, as ocean depths containing infinite wisdom, as morning dew blessing everything you touch. Trust your intuition completely in this creative process. The Tao that can be systematized is not the eternal Tao. What matters is not following rules perfectly, but finding the unique ways the universal principles want to express themselves through your individual consciousness. Create seasonal variations of your core practices. Let your visualizations change with the weather, your mood, the needs of each day. Develop emergency techniques for unexpected challenges, celebration visualizations for moments of joy, transition practices for major life changes. Your Tao visual should become as naturally responsive as your breathing, as personally yours as your heartbeat. The circle of inner support. One of the most profound shifts that can occur through sustained visualization practice is the development of what I call your circle of inner support, a living constellation of wisdom figures that exists within your own consciousness, accessible through the doorway of visualization. These are not imaginary friends or fantasy figures, but archetypal presences that represent different aspects of universal wisdom. Through years of practice, I have cultivated relationships with the patient farmer who teaches me about timing, the flowing water that shows me how to navigate obstacles, the ancient tree that reminds me of my deep roots, the migrating bird that guides me through transitions. You can begin developing your own circle by paying attention to which natural images consistently bring you peace, strength, or clarity during visualization. That mountain you breathe with during stress, what if you began to sense its ancient wisdom, its perspective gained from centuries of weathering storms? The river you visualize flowing through difficult relationships, what if you began to hear its gentle counsel about the nature of persistence and patience? Over time, these archetypal presences become inner resources you can consult through visualization. Facing a difficult decision? Visualize yourself sitting beside the ancient tree and feel into its patient wisdom. Struggling with creativity? See yourself learning from the master craftsperson who works with complete presence and no attachment to outcomes. Dealing with grief? Let the river teach you about flowing around obstacles while staying true to your course. This is not about creating dependencies or avoiding real-world support, but about accessing the deep wisdom that lives within your own consciousness. These inner guides are ultimately aspects of your own highest nature, made accessible through the language of symbolic vision. The circle of inner support also extends to sensing your connection with all others who walk this path. Sometimes during practice, allow yourself to visualize the invisible network of souls around the world who are also seeking to live with greater harmony, wisdom, and compassion. Feel your practice as part of this larger web of awakening consciousness. Navigating spiritual drought. Let me speak honestly about something every sincere practitioner encounters: periods when the practice feels dry, when visualization seems mechanical, when the magic appears to have vanished like morning mist. I call these times spiritual drought, and they are as natural and necessary as winter and the cycle of seasons. Our achievement-oriented culture teaches us to interpret these dry periods as failure, as signs we're doing something wrong or losing our way. But the Tao teaches us to see them differently, as necessary cycles that prepare the soil for deeper growth, as invitations to discover new depths of trust and commitment. During a drought in nature, trees send their roots deeper, seeking water in places they've never explored before. Similarly, spiritual drought often signals that you're ready for a deeper level of practice, even if it doesn't feel that way. The surface streams of easy inspiration may have dried up because you're being called to tap into the underground rivers of more profound realization. When you encounter periods where visualization feels flat or forced, first, breathe deeply and remember the river's teaching about natural rhythms. Just as rivers run high in spring and low in summer, your capacity for vivid inner vision will ebb and flow. This is not a problem to fix but a natural rhythm to honor. During dry periods, simplify your practice rather than abandon it. If elaborate visualizations feel lifeless, return to basic breath awareness. If seeing with the mind's eye feels cloudy, focus on feeling the sensations of peace, groundedness, or openness that the visualizations typically generate. Sometimes the most profound transformation happens not through dramatic inner visions but through quietly persistent presence. Use drought periods to deepen your understanding of Wu Wei, effortless action. Often these challenging times arise because we've begun to force our practice, to grasp after experiences rather than allowing them to unfold naturally. Drought becomes a teacher in letting go, in trusting the process even when we can't see immediate results. Remember also that spiritual drought often coincides with integration periods, when the consciousness changes catalyzed by your practice are settling into your being at levels too deep for the thinking mind to perceive. Trust that even when you can't feel it, the seeds planted through months of sincere practice are sending roots deep into the soil of your soul. The legacy of transformed vision. As your capacity for Tao visual deepens and matures, you may begin to notice something beautiful. Your own transformation naturally becomes a gift to the world, without any effort on your part to help or teach others. This is the mysterious power of authentic inner work. It radiates outward like the fragrance of a flower, benefiting all who come near. When you consistently practice seeing with the heart's eye, when you embody the flexibility of bamboo and the patience of mountains, people around you unconsciously begin to feel more peaceful in your presence. Your coworkers may notice that meetings seem to flow more smoothly when you're there. Your family may sense that you've become a calmer, more reliable source of stability during turbulent times. This influence happens not through preaching or teaching, but through what the Tao calls silent transformation, the way your inner state naturally affects the field of consciousness around you. It's like a tuning fork. When you vibrate with the frequency of harmony and balance, others nearby begin to resonate with that same frequency without conscious effort. You may find that people begin asking what's different about you, drawn to a quality of presence they can't quite name but deeply recognize. Some will be ready to hear about the practices that have supported your transformation. Others will simply benefit from being around your increased groundedness and peace. Both forms of influence are equally valuable. Your transformed vision also becomes a gift to future generations in ways you may never fully know. Every moment you choose to see with compassion rather than judgment, to visualize possibility rather than limitation, to embody the flowing wisdom of water rather than the rigidity of ice, these choices add to the reservoir of human consciousness, making it easier for others to make similar choices. Think of your practice as ripples on the vast lake of collective human experience. Each time you successfully shift from fear-based to Tao-based perception, each time you visualize bridges of understanding rather than walls of separation, you create ripples that travel far beyond your individual life, touching shores you'll never see but blessing them nonetheless. Resources for deepening. While the essential wisdom of the Tao is simple enough for a child to understand, its depths are inexhaustible. For those called to deepen their study and practice, I offer these pathways for continued exploration, each one a doorway into different aspects of this ancient wisdom. The classical texts remain fountains of inspiration, the Tao Te Ching, of course, but also the Zhuangzi with its playful paradoxes and the I Ching for understanding the natural patterns of change. Read them not as academic exercises but as meditation objects, letting single lines penetrate your consciousness like seeds in fertile soil. Consider exploring the physical practices that emerge from the same philosophical roots. Tai Chi and Qigong are visualizations made manifest in movement, perfect complements to your sitting practice. The slow, flowing movements help embody the principles you've been cultivating in visualization, creating a unified understanding that integrates body, energy, and spirit. The natural world remains your most accessible teacher. Commit to regular time in nature, not as recreation but as spiritual practice. Sit with trees, walk by water, lie on earth, breathe with wind. Let these direct encounters inform and deepen your visualization practice. The mountain you breathe with in meditation will become more vivid and powerful when you've spent time with actual mountains. Seek out others walking similar paths, but be discerning. Look for companions who embody the qualities you wish to cultivate: genuine humility, natural compassion, quiet strength, playful wisdom. True spiritual friendship supports your authentic unfolding rather than imposing external expectations or competitive dynamics. Consider working with qualified teachers who can offer personalized guidance while respecting your inner authority. The best teachers are like skilled gardeners. They know when to water, when to prune, when to simply trust the plant's natural wisdom to grow. They offer techniques as possibilities rather than prescriptions, understanding that your unique path must ultimately emerge from within. Most importantly, maintain what Zen calls don't know mind, the willingness to remain eternally curious, forever learning, always open to having your understanding deepened or refined by new experience. The moment we think we've got it, we've lost it. The Tao that can be grasped is not the eternal Tao. The silent commitment. And now, as our formal journey together draws to its close, I invite you to make what I call the silent commitment, not a vow spoken aloud or written down, but a quiet settling of your being into alignment with the path you've discovered. This commitment is not about perfection or never missing a day of practice. It's not about achieving particular states or maintaining constant bliss. It's much simpler and more profound, a willingness to continue returning to presence, to keep choosing the way of the Tao even when easier paths present themselves. Sit quietly for a moment and feel into what this commitment means for you. Perhaps it's a promise to maintain some form of daily practice, even if just a few conscious breaths with visualization. Maybe it's an intention to approach challenges with the fluidity of water rather than the brittleness of ice. It might be a dedication to seeing others through the lens of compassion more often than the lens of judgment. Let this commitment arise from your deepest knowing rather than your thinking mind. Feel into what your soul most wants to express through this lifetime, and align your practice with that authentic aspiration. The most powerful commitments are not made to external authorities or even to spiritual ideals, but to the truth of your own being. Remember that this commitment is renewed each moment, not held as a burden from the past. Each time you remember to breathe like a mountain, each time you choose to flow like water around obstacles, each time you visualize from your heart rather than force from your head, you're making the commitment fresh again. The path of the Tao is walked one step at a time, one breath at a time, one moment of conscious choice at a time. You don't need to see the entire path stretching ahead. You only need to take the next step with presence and trust. As I write these final words, I'm visualizing you reading them weeks, months, maybe years from now, your own practice mature and flowing, your own understanding deepened by countless moments of choosing the way of natural wisdom. I see you as the sage you're becoming, not perfect or problem-free, but increasingly aligned with the simple, profound truth of your being. The circle is complete and eternally beginning. The return to center is both the journey and the destination. And the Tao that has brought us together in these pages continues to unfold through your life in ways both subtle and miraculous, blessing all who cross your path with the fragrance of genuine presence. Moments for reflection. How has your relationship with spiritual achievement shifted through this practice? What would it feel like to approach each day's visualization as if encountering it for the first time? Which aspects of your inner wisdom circle feel most accessible and supportive right now? Practice. Create a personal commitment ritual using visualization. See yourself as a tree sending roots deep into the earth of your authentic intention while extending branches toward the light of continued growth. Feel this image in your body, let it settle into your heart, and return to it whenever you need to remember your chosen path.